red and white banners across, spelling out Hawaii on the left-hand side here at the Stadium of Light is quite some sight as we sit here at the top of the Grantry. And I'm just gonna leave the fans to give you a little bit of atmosphere down in front of us. Listen to this. Stadium is absolutely pumping at the moment. Black and white scarves being waved overhead on the left-hand side with the 6,000 Newcastle fans packed into that north stand. Honestly, this noise has been this loud for the last half an hour to 40 minutes, I would say. Everyone's been in their seats. No one's in their seats this early for a game, believe me. I report and present on so many, and most of the time the game is not filled up. The seats are not filled up until a good 5 minutes before. But these fans have been waiting for this for almost 8 years. March 2016 was the last time these two sides met, and was 7 minutes from kick-off. Jim Proudfoot, our commentator, and Lucy Ward, former Leeds United striker, are alongside me building up to this. Let's talk about it from a football perspective. Lucy, we've heard all of everything that's been going on in terms of the controversy with tickets, and then of course the redecoration of the Black Cats bar as well. But on the pitch, how's this going to be won and lost?
Yeah, I mean, I look at Sunderland and all their strengths are in the wide areas. So you look at Jack Clark on the left-hand side, Pritchard on the right, who will go inside and allow Hume to go beyond. And I think when you look at Newcastle, they're the areas of Newcastle that maybe are a little bit vulnerable. You know, Trippier likes to get forward. Dan Burn is the centre-back, he's playing left-back. And I think the choice of Dan Burn is interesting. You know, obviously a Geordie experience rather than Livramento, and the same for having Longstaff in the middle instead of Lewis Miley. Just a little bit more experience, and I think they'll need all that because Sunderland will give it a right go. That's all these fans want, is that these Sunderland players give it a right go. They're a young team, the expectations are not high to win this game. The pressure is more on Newcastle, so this team for Newcastle has to perform.
And Dan Burn is the perfect person, isn't he, to tell everybody exactly what this means. I tell you another person perfect to tell Sunderland what it means. Jordan Pickford, England's #1, is here in the stadium today as if he was going to miss this game, a massive Sunderland fan, and he'll be able to tell those youngsters what it means. And that's really key, isn't it, that both these sets of players know what this means to the fans.
Listen, I've been at various stadiums of noise, but the atmosphere here is incredible. So you probably don't need anybody while they've been warming up. You don't need, and they're stood in the tunnel now. You don't need anybody to tell you what this means to anybody. So I think that the young players have to play with no fear. It'll be the interesting bit. Will be the opening 5 or 10 minutes to see how the youngsters react for Sunderland, because this atmosphere is off the scale.
I tell you what, it's so cold here, but Jim Proudfoot means business. He's taken his coat off already. He's ready for action.
It's not cold. What are you talking about? Listen to this.
The anticipation is something else. Every time they think the music goes down and the players are coming out, which they are now, this is what happens. On the far side as well. Are there going to be fireworks during the game? The players walking out of the tunnel to the most incredible atmosphere I've ever seen at the Stadium of Light. We're ready to go. The question is, are the fans, are you, and are our commentary team? Sit back and enjoy this, or sit on the edge of the seat if you're of red and white or black and white persuasion. You'll enjoy it in the company of Lucy Ward and Jim Proudfoot.
Thank you, Faye, and a good afternoon to you for the long-awaited new chapter in this northeastern tale of two cities. They both had the best of times and the worst of times, but now, only now, do their paths converge again. The Geordie hordes making the 12-mile journey for the first time in 8 long years. It's a rivalry that started back in the 19th century, finally reignited now, and not since the 1940s have they had to wait as long for the next instalment. That absence hasn't made the heart grow fonder, whatever the ill-advised decorations in the away end might suggest. Bargate, just another dimension to a derby day that none of the starters or management had ever experienced professionally before. Before their respective stories diverged, it was Sunderland who held the upper hand on days like these. 3 wins in a row here, 6 in 7 all told. Derby Day victory, almost a weird side tradition to welcome a new boss. Canio and Poyet, Advocat and Allardyce all given an instant uplift by getting one over Newcastle. But ultimately none of those stories had happy endings. Mick Beale now hopes for that same early catalyst in different circumstances. Eddie Howe, who's unified and galvanised the tune, brought Wembley in the Champions League, has seldom needed a good result like now. All the ingredients are there. And every local derby needs local lads brought up, immersed in the culture of the area, the idiosyncrasies of their city. And both sides have them today. Sunderland unchanged on the side that beat Preston. Anthony Patterson from North Shields in goal. Hume, O'Nien, Ballard and Elise. Ekwa and South Shields born Dan Neil in midfield. Pritchard, Bellingham and Clark with Rusyn up front, Lucy.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this team and they have to be... They're obviously very talented going forward, Jim, but they have to be really aware when they lose possession because Newcastle can break very quickly. So Ekwa and Dan Neil in that central midfield need to be on it and concentrating and make sure that Newcastle don't break on them quickly.
Martin Dubravka's in goal for Newcastle. Trippier, Cher, Botman and Blythe born Dan Burn in the back 4. Sean Longstaff at North Shields, Guimaraes and Joelinton. The front 3, Almiron, Isak and Gordon.
So I look at this, Jim, and I think that if this Newcastle team play to the level of the players on that pitch, they will beat Sunderland. So first of all, it's expectation. Your attitude there has to be absolutely 100%. Concentration. Don't do anything. Everything has to be simple to start with. Don't do anything dramatic. And if you play the way you play, you will beat this Sunderland team. It is not as easy as that.
Craig Pawson is the referee. He sent off Ashley Young in the Merseyside derby earlier this season. He was also the VAR for Palace against Everton on Thursday, as Dominic Calvert-Lewin will tell you. There's no VAR today. Well, the two teams are just swapping round. Newcastle in their black and white stripes in a huddle. Inside their half, they will defend the north end of the ground in the first half. That's the end that houses the 6,000 travelling Geordies. Sunderland's players go into a huddle of their own now. 42,000 in here, willing them on. You can hardly hear yourself think. Derby Day. It is a day quite unlike any other, where the air crackles with expectation, born of a long-standing antipathy, where the customary desire for success is replaced today by a need. This, the 157th Weir Tyne Derby, a fixture with a rich past, but forget the history, because no instalment is ever more important than the next one. And it's Newcastle who've got us underway, kicking from left to right, and to number 39, Ekwa and Bruno Guimaraes in direct confrontation almost immediately, with Newcastle maintaining possession inside their own half. Fabian Cher able to bring the ball forward, and he's sent an excellent ball out to the Newcastle United left for Anthony Gordon, making his way forward towards the edge of the penalty area. Little give and go with Joelinton. Gordon, veteran of Merseyside derbies in the past, chipping the ball down towards the right flank, where it's picked up by Miggy Almiron. Trippier takes over, tries to buy a corner and has succeeded. Just came off Adji Elise, and out for an early Newcastle corner on the right flank. Still inside the opening minute here on Talksport.
And the atmosphere, Jim, is absolutely incredible. And I don't feel the trepidation of the fans in here, but I certainly feel the buzz from the atmosphere. Sunderland just need to keep it tight, defending a corner very early on.
It's a corner that Kieran Trippier will take, the man who played in Madrid derbies as well as North London ones. His ball in easily headed away by Bellingham. It comes back out for Trippier again. Oh, Patterson got caught underneath it, but in sailing over his head, it's taken a touch on its way through and out to Sunderland's safety for a throw to Newcastle. Patterson, who has been in inspirational form for the vast majority of his time as Sunderland's first choice keeper, just got caught underneath that cross as it came in. No harm done from a Sunderland perspective. Newcastle, who started really brightly, working it back inside the penalty area again. Almiron for Trippier. His ball in, heading towards goal. Patterson got in the way. It's stabbed clear by Ballard. And now Sunderland will be able to get it out of their own penalty area. But already the stall has been set by the travelling Geordies. A couple of minutes in, all Newcastle. Patterson already forced into a really good save. Played forward now towards Isak. Bellingham hooks it high up in the air. Ekwa will help it on. Pritchard out to Hume. Sunderland can get out for the first time in the game. They bring it forward towards halfway. Ekwa working it back through the midfield for Neil. And from the Black Cats' point of view, Lucy Ward, just an opportunity to gather some breath.
Listen, Jim, they look nervous. One or two, playing the ball, not concentrating properly. I have a little bit of nerves. And the first thing about this is that when you're playing in this atmosphere, you cannot hear each other. And that's what it looked like when the ball was being thrown into the box there. Sunderland players, they couldn't hear each other shout, and so they're all swinging the legs to try and clear the ball. The goalkeeper looked a little bit wobbly, but they've got through it, and that's the most important thing from a Sunderland point of view.
You are listening to Sunderland against Newcastle in the FA Cup. It's live on Talksport with Carling, the official beer partner of the Emirates FA Cup. 18 plus, please drink responsibly. Sunderland getting the ball forward down the right flank. Wilson chasing after it. Sliding challenge from Botman, puts it out for a throw that'll be taken on the Sunderland right. Other FA Cup ties taking place at the same time as this one. Plenty of goals in the early stages of them. Wimbledon 1, Ipswich 1, with an Alex Pearce own goal cancelled out by a Jake Reeves penalty. Coventry 3, Oxford 1 inside the opening 18 minutes. Lanty Baudier, Sheaf and Palmer, with Harris scoring the Oxford goal. And Leicester are a goal up at Millwall. Still 0-0 between Maidstone and Stevenage.
When Sunderland had it in their box,
as Ekwa tries his luck from distance, and it is just about cleared. Botman leaving it for Sherry, was able to hook it away.
When Sunderland had it in the box, they needed someone to put their foot on it. And who did it? Joe Bellingham. He quick feet, and he took it past someone in the box, and just showing a little bit of composure that was needed.
Now Jack Clark picking it up, and a few Sunderland fans thought that Clark against Trippier could be one of the key battles in their favour today. Ekwa losing that good sliding challenge coming into the midfield. Pritchard was involved in that. Newcastle will be able to play their way out from the back, but the intensity of the Sunderland press is such that there's a massive cheer as Hume wins an instalment of his battle against Gordon. The sliding challenge, it's out of play for a goal kick to Newcastle.
Do you know what, Jim? The biggest cheers have been for when Sunderland players have gone in for challenges and tried to win the ball and been a little bit physical. They're the big cheers, because that is what this crowd, this home crowd, want, and that is the way they see that they're going to disrupt this Newcastle team. Newcastle are a Premier League team. Sunderland are trying to get there, so the players are not going to be as talented as the Newcastle players, so they have to work harder. They have to make sure Newcastle players do not have any time on the ball.
But also, that is an area of the game where a lot of people thought that perhaps Newcastle would be dominant, particularly in midfield, when you've got Longstaff, Guimaraes and Jolinton up against Ekwa and Neil.
Yeah, even absolutely brilliant players like Guimaraes, if they don't have any time on the ball, then it's very difficult for them to pass it quickly.
Well, there's a hiatus here, and it's not immediately obvious what the problem is.
Do you know what, Jim? The kits, I don't know if it's just me, but the kits are far too similar. There's got red numbers on the back of the Newcastle strip, so that means that you can't see the numbers particularly from where we are. But when you've got two shirts together, I think stripes just add to it as well, because you just never know who's flying in.
No, I go along with that. There's a little bit more white on the Sunderland shirt. The sleeves are white, but from this position, it is very, very difficult to tell the two sets of players apart. It looks as though there's a communication problem, and that's why there's been the break. The assistant referee on this near touchline is Mark Perry. He's just been down the tunnel and has got his battery pack sorted out by the look of it, and we are going to be in a position that we can get back underway again. So probably a break of about 90 seconds or so. But as we restart, the ferocity And intensity is still there. Here's Kieran Trippier. And he's played it back to the edge of his own penalty area for Fabian Schär. Now to Sven Botman. And Botman controlling the ball, works it out to his left-hand side for Dan Burn. Burn to Gordon's a great turn by Gordon, trying to get the run on Trey Hume. And Gordon forced back by Hume. Northern Ireland international fullback did well to get back in position. Guy Moraes works it to his right-hand side. Scher's going to be able to bring it forward again towards halfway, checks and then works it back for Martin Dubravka. We're 7 minutes in, albeit that we've probably only seen about 5 minutes of action so far.
Yeah, Sunderland don't want to be tempted out, so they're letting Newcastle have it and just trying to put up some sort of block, and they're just a little bit worried about the pace of Isak in behind.
And they look for him now, but although the back line was turned, there was too much on the pass, and it rolls through for Patterson. Ballard just turns and asks the question of the assistant referee, who I think indicated that the flag would have gone up had Isak played the ball. Here's Adji Elise, the former West Ham youngster, playing it forward from left back for Sunderland. Newcastle can mop it up again and go back forward to Dubravka. Now out towards Fabian Schär. 157th meeting of these two teams, and they've both won exactly the same number of the previous encounters. One of these sides is going to go ahead in the series either today or in a replay in 10 days' time. Ball forward towards Pritchard for Sunderland, who can turn in the midfield. He's the only Sunderland starter who's ever played against Newcastle before. He's not got a good FA Cup record, incidentally, Alex Pritchard. This is the 9th FA Cup tie of his career. He's played for 5 different clubs in the competition. He has never won an FA Cup tie, but this would be some place to start. With 10 minutes in, not quite, 9 minutes in, and it's Sunderland 0, Newcastle United 0 in the Weir Tyne derby on Talksport.
Yeah, Newcastle playing out from the back. They know that Sunderland are not. They're just going to try and tempt Sunderland forwards to try and find the gaps in between and get a run on that back four. But this is certainly not a game as a player where you can hide. You know, you've got to stand up, and some of these players will thrive. I'm looking at Jack Clark. I'm hoping that he thrives today, because you know, some of these players could get a move from a game like this.
Newcastle look long again. He's trying to get Almiron in behind Elise, but far too much on the ball forward. And he rolls through for Patterson. Sunderland coming into it in decent form. Lost the first game under Mick Beale, a 3-0 defeat at Coventry that showed just how much work he's got to do. But they then won at Hull, held at Rotherham, beat Preston here. And it's just the second home match that Beale has had in charge. There's some big games coming up in the league as they try and consolidate the playoff position that they have at the moment. Newcastle bringing it forward, coming into this on the back of 6 defeats in 8. And one of the 2 that they didn't lose was a penalty shootout elimination in the League Cup. No kind of form, particularly away from home, where they've taken only 5 points from a possible 30 in the Premier League so far this season. 5 away defeats in a row coming into this, but they've started the better. 10 minutes in at 0-0, and in possession here with Joelinton playing it back for Schär. Schär and Botman just trying to slow things down at the back at the moment, because Guy Moraes has been undergoing some running repairs, just trying to sort his boots out. And Newcastle just retained possession whilst that was happening. Now a ball forward is easily knocked away at the back by 09. A versatile player playing at centre half at the moment. The ball played forward, chased down the Sunderland right-hand side, and a sliding challenge comes in to try and knock it away from Hume. Byrne ending up with the ball at his feet. Guy Moraes had to stretch to bring it under control. Longstaff's got it now. Another one of the Geordies in the Newcastle side for whom this is such a special occasion.
Do you know what, they actually set up really sensibly, Sunderland. Unlike how Tony Mowbray played, this crowd like to see them press high, but I think you've just got to be a little bit clever and cuter than that against the Premier League side. And they're trying to make Newcastle play it longer, and they have done, and they've just gobbled it up at the back and just tried to start their own attacks. That's sensible.
Gordon chasing. Ballard is there, knocks it away, but not too far, and now the Sunderland backline's lost their shape for a moment. Trippier on the overlap, Almiron's played him in. Ballard did brilliantly to block the cross, and it just went the right side of the corner flag. From a Sunderland perspective, it's a Newcastle United throw. Ballard with a good recovery there, having just got caught in possession.
You know, games where tackles and blocks are celebrated like goals, I just love that, Jim.
It's a real throwback in in a good way, obviously. Ball played inside the penalty area here by Longstaff. Teased up high towards the edge of the penalty area, knocked away by 09. And brought under control on the left-hand side of the Newcastle midfield by Gordon. Guimaraes has it. Trippier in support for him just behind him. Trippier 20 yards outside the penalty area. Possession turned over easily again by Clark. Pritchard is in there. Newcastle trying to win it back. Get the decision from referee Pawson. Jolinton, the man that ended up on the deck. And it's a free kick that Trippier might fancy. He spotted the ball down. It's 12 outside the penalty area. Maybe a little bit more than that. 13-14 outside the penalty area. Almost level with Patterson's right-hand post.
You know, Joe Bellingham had the ball then and probably was fouled by Trippier, and he ended up, because he was affected by Trippier, he ended up lunging in and giving the free kick away. So the referee let it go, but probably not enough contact in there for the referee to give a foul the other way.
So Trippier has spotted the ball down. Patterson lining up a wall, which looks as though it's 4 strong. Dan Burn stands on the end of that wall. He will vacate his position just to give Trippier a gap to try and blast this through. It's almost the identical position to that one that he scored for England in the World Cup semi-final against Croatia back in 2018. Trippier runs up, hits it right-footed, deflected off the wall, but although that changed the direction of it, it took the pace out of it, and it skids through into the hands of Patterson.
Yeah, he's a popular figure here, Kieran Trippier. The crowd are having a go at him, everything that he does, singing about him and trying to answer them, but it deflected easily into the arms of Patterson. But I think that Sunderland fans will be happy with the way, apart from the opening couple of minutes where they were a little bit wobbly. I think Newcastle have been quite patient. It just allows Sunderland to keep that defensive structure, which is what they wanted.
With Talksport with 13 minutes in, and it's still 0-0. Patterson making one very important early reaction save. That the only save of note that either goalkeeper has had to make so far. Alice in the midfield loses out. Newcastle turning it over again. One game in League One that has kicked off early on the file. Coach Charlie Adams' first game in charge of Fleetwood, and our very best wishes to him in his managerial career. But his side a goal down at home to Derby, with Mendes Lang's 7th of the season, as Derby look for an 8th win in 10 and an opportunity to consolidate their place in the top 4. They can go above a third place Peterborough today, and they lead 1-0 at Highbury. The Harrogate-Doncaster game in League 2 about to get underway. No further changes to the scores in the other FA Cup ties. Wimbledon 1, Ipswich 1, Coventry 3, Oxford 1. 0-0 Maidstone-Stevenage, and 1-0 Leicester leading with a Cesare Casadei goal at Millwall, as Gordon turns in possession in the midfield. Plays it back for Botman. Fabian Schär. The long diagonal, the black markings on the yellow ball, visible even from our lofty vantage point as he spun it over towards the far side, but Burns' control was poor. Right,
they're being really patient to the point of slowing the game right down Newcastle. As soon as they get it at the back, they're not going to be pressed by Sunderland, so it's up to Newcastle. You know, the onus is on them to create something, and just the only one that looks a little bit bright and lively is Anthony Gordon as soon as he gets it. The rest have just been a little bit safe.
Bellingham losing the ball in midfield. Is that a byproduct of the occasion? Is it a byproduct of the run that they're on at the moment?
Yeah, well, probably just quelling the atmosphere, to be honest. That's the way to do it.
Hammer-on trying to turn the ball down towards the Newcastle United right, where Longstaff have made the run. Alice will bring it forward, quickly closed down by Trippier, who just forced him over the line and out of play. And the ball followed the pair of them, and it's a Newcastle throw that they've taken quickly.
I think the Newcastle fans would want them to be a little bit more positive, to be a little bit, you know, trying to get the ball in those wide positions beyond, rather than to Anthony Gordon's feet. Isak's trying to get involved, but there's a lot of bodies in that central area, so it's so difficult to find space.
Those are thoughts of the brilliant Lucy Ward with us here on Talksport today. So much live FA Cup action for you over the course of the weekend, and I'll tell you what else is on the itinerary very shortly. As Newcastle just left it for each other at the back for a moment, and then Clark has caught Botman. Now Schär, as the ball took an awkward bounce, left it for Botman to clear. Clark was within his rights to try and close him down, but he got there too late.
do you know what, Jim? This is one of the typical ones where a defender goes to clear it and the attacker goes and tries to block the shot, and then there may be contact. I don't know if there's contact, but the fact that Botman's rolling about means that the referee's thinking, hang on a minute, was there more in that? I really don't think there was that much. He went in with his foot up in the air. We're watching a replay of it now, and basically Botman kicks the bottom of, it happens all the time, kicks the bottom of Jack Clark's boots. Very, very painful, but really nothing in that whatsoever. But because of Botman's reaction, then the referee's sort of thinking, hang on a minute, what's happened there? I don't think any action is going to be taken with Jack Clark.
Yeah, it undoubtedly would have hurt.
Absolutely.
And Botman, I'm not surprised, ended up on the deck. But Clark put his left foot out to block Botman's clearance. Botman got the ball away from him, and the momentum of his own left boot as he cleared, saw the ball cleared, and then the momentum of his foot took him up into the studs of Clark's extended foot, and as a result he ended up on the deck. No foul, a free kick has been given, no malicious foul, certainly no yellow card. A good refereeing by Craig Pawson. We are back underway and Botman's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there was any sort of intent in there, and the contact came the other way, and the boots that they wear very thin, so Botman presumably felt that a lot, but I think that's the right decision. No yellow card.
He's had his injury problems, of course, Sven Botman, which seems to be a prerequisite of being a Newcastle player these days. No Pope or Murphy or Manquillo or Wilson or Anderson or Barnes or Willock or Targett today. No Tonali, of course, because of suspension, and Gordon has ended up on the deck now, as it just becomes a little bit stop-start and a bit fractious for the first time.
Yeah, the fans here thinking that perhaps Anthony Gordon's making the most of that, but just was caught by Trey Hume. Probably is a sore one, but he did roll about 3 times, and it's all part of the drama, it's all part of the theatre of this particular derby occasion, I'm sure.
And we're 19 minutes into it, and it remains 0-0, but the atmosphere has been peerless. Trippier, ball inside the penalty area. Gordon chases after it. Hume deliberately mistimed his jump because he knew the cross was going to be too high. Gordon can pick up the loose ball on the left-hand touchline and drives forward. And he's found Guy Moraes. Cher invited forward, doesn't get himself into a position to hit it. Trippier's control on the subsequent pass is poor. It didn't go out of play. Plays it in past Elise to find Longstaff. Guy Moraes tries to turn it round the corner, gets it back. Bellingham tries to stop him getting a shot in. The shot did come in, it hit Ballard. The referee says play on, and there's no VAR, remember, for this game today.
Yeah, it may have hit hand there, Jim, but I think there was about a metre in it, so, luckily no VAR, so nobody's going to look at that from, we don't want to see a penalty from that, because there's absolutely no time at all to pull his hand out of the way if it did.
And then Nazar Rusin, the Sunderland striker, is brought down, and a free kick is quickly taken.
I don't even think it did. I think it hit his stomach. We're just watching the replay now, the TV. No, I believe his arm was in front of his stomach, so that's not a handball.
Ball control by O'Nien, and Gordon can seize upon it. Joelinton makes a run ahead of him. O'Nien rescued the situation brilliantly, stabbing out a right foot, flicking it down towards Bellingham. No foul on Bellingham by Almiron, but that's what the crowd were appealing for. And then Elise wires into the next challenge and hauls Longstaff back to his feet, having won the ball, which ended up in the hands of Dubravka 50 yards upfield.
Yeah, Joe Bellingham couldn't hear anybody say man on then behind him, and so he just was nicked from him. And then another challenge from Elise, a real firm challenge that wasn't given, and just absolute blood and thunder.
Well, we're nearly a quarter of the way through the game. It hasn't been the most aesthetically pleasing. We could all have predicted that would have been the case, but we could also have predicted that it was going to be a sensational occasion, a wonderful atmosphere. We haven't been let down.
Absolutely
This
not.
is a classic FA Cup third round tie. That's why this weekend is one of the greatest weekends in the sporting calendar, year in, year out. Always throws up something. It's 0-0 in the 22nd minute here on Wearside.
That's a good battle in the middle. Ekwart for Sunderland and Joelinton's so useful for Newcastle in games like this, because he covers the ground well, and he gets to 50-50s, and he wins balls where he shouldn't as well.
And Joelinton and Guy Moraes have linked up well here. A lot of Newcastle's attacking play coming down this near touchline, the right. Trippier ball in towards the near post. There was a half chance for Longstaff coming onto it. He just scooped his right foot underneath it, helped it over the bar as he had to stretch to get it into his stride. But a half chance for Newcastle, it stays 0-0.
Yeah, getting into the way that they play Newcastle. So getting Kieran Trippier up the pitch, getting him the ball where he's got quite a lot of space around him, good ball into the box, and just ghosted past Ballard there. And Sean Longstaff just tried to get something on it, but in the end I think he just skipped up and he got too much on it.
So Sunderland Newcastle today. So much more live football coming your way. Over on Talksport 2 later this afternoon, you can hear live commentary of Stoke against Brighton at 5:30. We've got a choice of listening with Chelsea against Preston on Talksport 2, and the game day phone in with Jamie O'Hara and Gabby Agbonlahor here on Talksport. And after us on Game Day exclusive, Adrian Durham will be taking you around the grounds, bringing you all of the goals as they go in from the FA Cup, Leagues 1 and 2, and the National League as well. So plenty to get your ears around, and that's just today. Tomorrow, a double bill for you. Manchester City against Huddersfield and Arsenal against Liverpool. Games that kick off at 2 and 4:30 respectively here on Talksport. This one, the midway point in the first half has just passed us, and it is still 0-0. Newcastle having the majority of possession. They're having it in good areas as well. Like now, as Trippier works it down the inside right channel. Now Moron chasing everything gamely. He knew as soon as the pass was played it was overhit, but still did his best. But at least they had enough of a head start to be able to shepherd the ball over the line in conjunction with Ballard. And it's a goal kick that Sunderland's Anthony Patterson will take with 23 minutes gone. Yeah,
Jack Clark's side, he needs to track back and help Elise down on that left back side, because Trippier gets forward, and if you let Trippier go forward in space, we've seen a couple of times he's put a good ball in the box. So as well as the stuff forward, Jack Clark just needs to be aware of what is needed out of possession. Either he does it or he cheats and other people cover him from midfield areas, just so that he's ready on regains.
Millwall 0, Leicester 2 with 5 minutes to go to half time in South London. Now Ricardo Pereira's got the second. And so they've been able to translate their league form into the Cup. Newcastle hoping that that's not the case for them. Newcastle's last win in this fixture here in August 2011 with a goal from Ryan Taylor. It's been a long time in coming. They'll now desperately be hoping that that poor run ends today. And Sunderland, prior to the last meeting of the two, which was a draw at St James's Park, had won 6 in a row in the Weir Tyne derby. And now an overhit ball from Guy Morais sails over the head of Trippier, and out of play for a throw that'll be taken on the Sunderland left. And Mick Beale will be happy with the foundation that's been laid here.
I mean, he's obviously set his team up in a certain defensive structure, so that it's sort of like a 4-4-2 basically, and just making sure there's no gaps. You know, they retreat and try and deny space in behind, but try and stay as high as they can up the pitch as long as they can as a back four. Newcastle, the onus is on them to build well, but they're not working at the same intensity that we normally see a Newcastle team. But they are getting the ball wide. Sunderland need to be aware of that.
Now Sunderland have a throw in Newcastle territory as Ipswich regain the lead at Wimbledon. Elsewhere in the FA Cup, Wimbledon 1, Ipswich 2 coming up to half time. Now those 12:30 kickoffs, this 12:45, so we're 25 minutes in. There's Axel Twanzebe incidentally that scored that Ipswich goal. More defending for Newcastle to do. Cher hooking the ball away from the onrushing Rusin. He scored his first goal for Sunderland against Preston on Monday, and the celebrations have just belied exactly what a weight off the shoulders it has been for the young Ukrainian.
Yeah, I think that they need an experienced number 9. They've not replaced what they had, and the goals have had too much reliance, I think, on Jack Clark. He's got a third of their goals nearly, and I think that, you know, if he's not firing in the league, then, you know, they sometimes struggle for goals. But it's interesting. I've watched a few Sunderland players now and realise that they actually haven't got that much time on the ball. You know, they've been caught in possession when probably in the Championship they had a little bit more time on the ball.
Newcastle work it forward towards Isak. 09 stopped him getting it. Ekwa's got it now in the midfield for Sunderland. Inside the Newcastle half of the centre circle. Slips it to his left for Dan Neal. One of the local lads. Oh, it's a great pass from him out towards Trey Hume. Hume near the bottom right corner of the penalty area. Laying it back for Ekwa. Left-footed ball clipped in, a little bit too straight. Bellingham gave chase. Easily claimed, though, by Dubravka. And it remains 0-0. Here's Lucy Ward.
Yeah, that's the first real venture into the final third. Sunderland, they're so content with sort of sitting back and looking for the break, but they have to commit those players forward. And that first pass has to be good to try and beat and get in the areas that Newcastle leave them.
Possession pretty much 75-25 in Newcastle's favour so far. Just the one off-target attempt for Sunderland. Newcastle have had 4. 2 on target, 2 off target. Here's Dan Burn. 4-2 over on the far touchline. The Newcastle left as they kick from left to right. More space for Longstaff now. Good switch of play down towards Trippier. Waits for the ball to come to him. Kills it with his first touch with his right instep. And then works it back along the halfway line to Longstaff. Trippier gets it back. Almiron shows for it on the right flank. Elise putting him under pressure, so he quickly works it back for Trippier. Yeah. Trippier now to share, and he will find Botman.
Yeah, a lot of Newcastle's possession is just across the back four, trying to find ways inside, whether it's to Guimaraes or it's into Joe Linton, but most of the time they're coming right. They're not really gone to Anthony Gordon's side as much, but Sunderland just moving as units, just trying to stop any sort of pass into Isak, who hasn't seen that much of the ball simply because there's that many bodies around him.
Certainly not a chance worthy of the name for Alexander Isak so far. Sunderland's home form has been mixed. They've been beaten 5 times here this season, but they've won the other 8, and they have beaten 3 of the top 5 here already. So for the big occasion, they certainly have the ability, the game plan. They're in possession at the back now with Patterson after another long Newcastle ball was overhit, and Elise watches it past Almiron. Patterson then bowling out quickly where O'Neill didn't really want it there, but he was able to get it away from inside his own penalty area. Helped then on by Hume to Pritchard. Good turn from the former Tottenham player. Pritchard getting it again, little backheel flick from him. Sunderland try and get it forward with Hume, and it goes out of play for a Sunderland throw.
Yeah, and the way that Sunderland set up, they're trying to make Newcastle predictable, and they actually fell for it, and they're trying to force the ball forward. Just they couldn't find a space through, so they went long, and it went through. Sunderland then built from the back, which we haven't seen them do, and they actually got themselves up the pitch. But it's always a risk doing that because Newcastle find themselves forward and up the pitch. So in terms of a counter press, they win the ball back all the time in the Premier League. So you've got to be careful playing out from the back.
Ekwa through the midfield for Elise. Now down towards the left for Jack Clark. 12 goals to his name this season. Clark turning inside, doing well, getting the better of Trippier, but not getting the better of Almiron. It's a good ball forward, and Isak, goal side of Ballard, who's brought him down, has he? What's the decision going to be? Referee says no foul.
Tell you what, Ballard did so well, and that's Jack Clark losing it. As soon as Newcastle wins it back, straight ball to Isak, who obviously has the pace. Ballard was behind him when he started his run and eased himself into Isak, and then fell at the same time of Isak, and that is the most important thing you've got to do, otherwise it looks like an obvious penalty.
It remains 0-0, and we've played exactly half an hour here on Talksport. Jim Crampton and Lucy Ward talking you through the action from the Weir Tyne derby, the last FA Cup meeting between these two, way back 1956 in a quarter-final tie up the road. Sunderland won it 2-0 at St James's in front of a crowd of 61,500, knocking Newcastle, who were then the holders, out of the FA Cup, and the Geordies haven't won the competition since. Well, they haven't claimed a major domestic honour since then.
You know what, the only real time that Newcastle have cut through is when Sunderland have lost the ball, when they've got some sort of composed possession, where they've knocked the ball through then to Isak, and Ballard had to take a risk, really. You know, it was 50-50. I've just seen the replay, but that was a risk of giving a penalty away, and they've done well so far, Sunderland, to just keep the defensive structure right, but they have to do that for the whole of the game. It's so difficult.
The referee's given a free kick against Trippier for a foul on Clark. Trippier has then thrown the ball, or just rolled it away from where the infringement happened, down towards Fabian Schär. The referee's taken no action, and it's going to be a Sunderland free kick from about 15 yards inside Newcastle territory. The chance to tease the ball forward towards the edge of the penalty area. Newcastle holding a very high line to condense the play here, about 10 yards outside their box. Pritchard's going to take it. The diminutive blonde-haired midfielder, just removing a little bit of grass from between the studs of his left boot. Motions to take it quickly and then stops, raises his left arm, fires it in. Collision in running towards the edge of the penalty area there as Ballard made his way forward, but the referee says the free kick's actually gone the other way against him, and the free kick that Newcastle have taken quickly on the edge of their own box. So play it out here for Fabian Schär, 0-0.
We cannot actually hear the rest whistle, so half of the players stopped then because they obviously could hear as the free kick came over, just some sort of infringement from a Sunderland player as the ball came in from the free kick. So actually a chance lost for Sunderland, because they have to rely on, when they do get up the pitch and they do get these set pieces, they have to make the most of them.
Can't hear the referee's whistle, can barely hear each other. I mean, it's
That's not a bad thing, that, Jim. Not mean from me to you.
No, none taken. The ball is at the heart of the Newcastle defence. It'll be played forward, but not to good effect. Dan Neal's won it back, finds Pritchard. Pritchard inside the centre circle. Strong challenge comes in to win it back from Joe Linton. And Newcastle with Dan Byrne will play it out to the left flank. Maidstone have taken the lead at home to Stevenage, 1-0 in the FA Cup. Gordon playing the ball inside the area here. Almost fell for Joe Linton. It does fall for Longstaff, and he's ballooned it over the bar. What a chance.
Yeah, Sunderland have just given Newcastle a couple of chances. One was that Isak chance through the middle, and the second one there where Hume tried to go in and intercept. It allowed Anthony Gordon, the 6s and 7s at the back, desperate defending. It comes to Longstaff. All he has to do is put it on target, and he just swipes it and it flies miles over the bar, and it's letting Sunderland off the hook.
Just to reiterate, that goal scored in first half stoppage time. Maidstone leading Stevenage by a goal to nil. Stevenage 3 divisions above them. Maidstone in the top 5 in the National League South. Sam Corn has scored from the penalty spot against the Stevenage side, doing really well under Steve Evans in League One this season. But Maidstone a goal up as they look to make it through to the 4th round for the first time in this incarnation of the club. In League One, Derby 2 up at Fleetwood now. James Collins, 16th of the season. Harrogate lead Doncaster by a goal to nil in League 2. This one is 0-0 with 11 minutes to go to half-time here on Wearside, the Stadium of Light. Joe Linton making his way forward, galloping inside the penalty area, flashing it across the face of goal. He's put in for an own goal. It's Newcastle that lead. Ball rifled through the 6-yard box. It had to be played after Joe Linton's perceptive run. And Dan Ballard on the stretch just got his foot to it, steering away from Isak, who was coming in, but he's just put it into his own net. The first goal Newcastle has scored at the Stadium of Light for a decade. It gives them the lead in the FA Cup tie.
I tell you what, that's all about Joe Linton's physicality. He was positioned on the left and he managed to muscle his way through past Hume, who tried to just dive in, and it's about the ball. Now, if Ballard hadn't have put that in, Isak could have put it in. So it comes from the left. It's an absolutely fantastic ball from Joe Linton. Ballard swings at it because he thinks if he doesn't, Isak's got a tap in. It could go anywhere, and it ends up in the back of his own net. Shinnies it into the back of the net, but Isak could have had a tap in.
Yeah, tried to slice it wide, but he had to play it, Dan Ballard.
You can't let it affect him. Listen, I've scored an own goal in absolutely the biggest game of my career, and you cannot let it affect you. There's nothing. If he'd have left it, Isak could have had a tap in. He had to try and get something on it, and unfortunately for Sunderland, it ended up in the back of the net.
So Sunderland needing a reaction, and Newcastle with a fresh impetus and intensity in their press as the ball was played back for Patterson. And Isak was able to block it. Goes out of play for a throw that'll be taken on the Sunderland right-hand side. It felt today like a game where the first goal was going to be more crucial than normal. Newcastle got a really good record from 1-0 up. They got a terrible record this season when they go 1-0 down in games, where they've lost 9 out of 10. They took a point at West Ham. It's the only time they've come from behind, but when they score first, haven't been perfect, but they've won the vast majority, and they've got their noses in front here. And you'd have to say over the whole piece, deservedly so. Yeah. They've had the majority of possession and created the few chances that the game has offered have come to Newcastle, and Dan Ballard's own goal has given them the lead.
Yeah, I think that, Sunderland are taking the game step by step. So first 15 and then trying to get to 30 minutes and seeing whether they can, grab themselves a goal but defend well. And, they'll be disappointed with that. But I think they'll be happy that they've restricted Newcastle to the minimum amount of chances, and they've stayed quite compact the rest of the time. What they can't do now is fall apart.
Here's Isak. Played out of the Newcastle left for Joe Linton. Guimaraes has got it now. That goal, the first that Newcastle have scored here since Mathieu Debuchy back in 2013. Ball over on the Newcastle left. Joe Linton. Gordon behind him. Longstaff, who's missed a couple of really presentable half chances. Now down towards Fabian Schär. Schär is put under pressure, telling pressure as well by Rusin. And Schär used his experience, felt the contact, went to ground and fell on the ball, and the referee has found in his favour. Schär back on his feet very quickly, but feeling the small of his back after getting a bang in the back from Nazaré Rusin, who's making his FA Cup debut today. And it's a free kick that Newcastle will take and quickly work back inside their own half again for Botman. Sunderland 0, Newcastle 1 on Talksport.
Yeah, I mean, Rusin's playing in the 9. He's quite small and diminutive figure, and he's got to work really hard out of possession. So when Newcastle get to a certain point, like that challenge on Schär, there's nothing wrong with that. As soon as he steps over the halfway line, you've got to connect, you've got to get around and press, because that's where, if Sunderland do win the ball back, where they might get some joy. But he's having nothing in possession. Rusin, bless him, he's just running about and trying to stop Newcastle getting themselves forward. But I think that the shape has worked well for Sunderland. They just need a little bit more when they do get the ball.
Well, there'll come a stage where they're going to have to be a little bit more proactive. Almiron making his way forward now for Newcastle. Well cut out the through ball by Hume. Hume then infield towards Pritchard, but Jolinton's got it back. Now out towards Gordon. Hume's fouled him. Free kick level with the edge of the penalty area out towards the left-hand touch line, and Trey Hume gets the first yellow card of the day.
Yeah, they're too physical in the duels, Newcastle. They're too quick. They're quick to second balls. It just means that Sunderland are entering duels late and they end up fouling. And that's that. Hume he hasn't had a torrid time. He's had a lively time down that right-hand side. He's done a lot of things right, but he's under extreme pressure, whether it's Anthony Gordon or whether it's Joe Linton, right back for Sunderland. He just needs a little bit of help. But I think it's that central midfield area. I want to see Ekwah step up, because a lot's been said about him in central midfield, and he needs to compete with the likes of Joe Linton and Longstaff.
An equaliser for Doncaster at Harrogate in League 2. Sam Folleren's 8th of the season had given Harrogate the lead. Tommy Rowe made it 1-1 within a couple of minutes. Newcastle leading here with that Dan Ballard own goal 5 minutes ago. We've got another 5 minutes to go to half-time, with probably 3 to be added. There's one in the Sunderland wall here to stop a cheeky near-post attempt, if Trippier's got that in his mind. Sunderland have got everybody back inside their own penalty area. The free kick has been spotted down a couple of yards adrift of the edge of the box, predominantly out towards the left-hand touchline. Gordon waits on the edge of the penalty area. 5 or 6 in black and white inside that penalty area, making runs in now as it's headed away well by Ballard. That would have done him the world of good. Yeah. It's out of play for a corner, which is Newcastle's second of the game.
Yeah, it's a good ball in, as we'd expect from Trippier, but Ballard making sure that he gets first contact. It's quite interesting. You've got Trey Hughes playing right back. He's now been booked. He's not a natural right back. I think under Mowbray, sort of inverted into midfield. They prefer midfield. It'd be interesting to see whether Sunderland do make a change at half-time, because they've got a couple of players that are a little bit quicker than Hume and more defensively minded.
The ball not quite on the quadrant. Sunderland fans are quick to let the assistant referee and Kieran Trippier know. They have got an orthodox right back on the bench, Timothée Pembele, former PSG man, as Trippier fires the corner in. It's headed away. The retreating Isak is going to be first to it. He's laid it back for Anthony Gordon. Gordon taking a touch, hooking a long right-footed ball down towards the edge of the penalty area where Byrne was the target. It's knocked away by Hume. He's got to make sure he doesn't miss time a challenge. O'Nine's in there, Bellingham forcing it down away from Byrne and then shepherding it over the line. And out of play for a goal kick. Going to be taken by Anthony Patterson. 3 to go to half-time. It's Sunderland 0, Newcastle 1.
Yeah, Joe Bellingham shows some good touches, but he just needs to quicken up what he does, and that's all about what he plays, who he plays against week in and week out. This will teach him a lot in terms of the, playing against quicker, probably more athletic at this stage because he's still only young, but he's got the physicality, and that more will come from that. But some nice measured touches, but just to quicken up his game.
Remember, 2 big FA Cup commentaries coming your way tomorrow on Talksport as we start at the Etihad for Manchester City against Huddersfield, then to the Emirates for Arsenal-Liverpool. That's a game that's live and only on Talksport on UK radio tomorrow. Then Jeff Stelling returns on Monday with Ali McCoist, live on Talksport every Monday and Tuesday from 6. What a great listen it has been with Jeff at the helm, Jeff and Ali. A wonderful way to start your working week. And that's from 6 on Talksport Breakfast. Monday morning, Newcastle on the front foot again. Joe Linton just forced Gordon wider than he wanted to go, but he can run round it. Played it to the edge of the penalty area. Longstaff helping it on. 10 outside the box. Newcastle retreat again, actually, with Guimaraes playing it back now. Clipped in by Trippier, headed away. Gordon making life a little bit too difficult for 09. Forces him to the ground. Free kick, which will be taken by Sunderland inside their own penalty area. Right,
so you've got Dan Neil and Ekwa playing central midfield. They play sort of like a 4-2-3-1 Sunderland, but Newcastle are playing around them. They need to get closer. They need to step the game up away from the centre-backs and just get closer to the... because they're outnumbered in that midfield area, so you've either got to drag your wide players in or you've got to have a centre-back who will step out. But at the moment... The Sunderland midfield are really struggling against the 3 of Newcastle.
Now Ballard bringing the ball out from the back, caught by Isak, who claimed that there was no contact and that the referee found in the Sunderland man's favour. Had he not done so, Newcastle were 2 against the keeper. Sunderland bring it forth from the free kick, play it out towards Hume. From 90 seconds to go to half-time here on Talksport as Ekwa plays it back through the midfield for Dan Neil. Neil with very nimble feet walks away from Jolinton's challenge, ball in towards the edge of the penalty area, deflected off Longstaff. The retreating Pritchard tries to make something happen for Sunderland but can't. Ekwa dives in, Jolinton plays round him, now play through the midfield. Longstaff looking to fashion the ball down towards Isak, couldn't find him. Ballard wins it back for Sunderland, down towards Clark. Clark hits a brisk back pass towards his goalkeeper. Patterson in towards the feet of Elise, under pressure immediately from Almiron, and it'll be a Sunderland throw. On this near touchline, Lucy, just wondering about Clark against Trippier, we highlighted as being an important battle. It's one that Trippier has won so far. Clark hasn't had the possession to try and take Trippier back the other way, but defensively, Clark's struggling against Trippier.
Yeah, I mean, because he doesn't naturally do it. I think that it's a little bit cat and mouse, so they either make a decision that Jack Clark sort of stays or he comes back and helps. At the moment he's in between, so he's not getting anything going forward and he's not particularly helping out. But Newcastle are just far too physical for Sunderland in those midfield areas at the moment, and it's quite obvious.
So here's Guimaraes trying to get himself into a shooting position. Played out of the left-hand side for Byrne. Byrne back for Gordon. And now Newcastle retaining possession. Good ball in. Almiron, left-footed. Oh, it's wide. Tried the scissor kick off balance. It would have been one of the more spectacular goals this fixture has seen in recent times, but he just couldn't quite get the ball to do enough, and it's gone wide of the far post.
Yeah, it's right in the inside channel. He makes a run beyond Almiron, and he really makes a mess of it, but the ball still ends up going towards goal and just past the far post. I think it's another shin it. I don't think the goalkeeper was too worried, but that would have been an incredible goal had he connected well with it.
So we're into 3 minutes added time at the end of the first half. Just going back to that last point you were making about Newcastle's physicality and where that's giving them joy in midfield. When that's the case, in midfield, what do you do? Because you can't change, obviously, the natural proportions of your players in that regard. So how do you overcome it? Get your thoughts on that in a moment. Newcastle bring it forward here with Anthony Gordon, and Gordon will go back to Botman to Longstaff on the stretch, and Sunderland trying to win it back with Neil, but Ekwa has come across and he will be able to get Sunderland out of trouble.
Yeah, Ekwa has everything. He just needs to... He looks a little bit overawed, Ekwa. I mean, I've seen him play a few times in the Championship and it's too easy for him, but Bellingham's got back and helped in that central area in the last few minutes, and it's actually helped. But at the moment, if it's just Dan Neil and Ekwa, then you've got Joe Linton and you've got Longstaff and you've got Guimaraes. So difficult, and particularly the physicality of Joe Linton. He just gets there quicker, and they just need to quicken up what they do. And when they haven't got it, Sunderland, they need to get closer.
Joe Linton turns away from a challenge from Pritchard. Midway through the 3 added minutes, 1-0 Newcastle lead with a Dan Ballard own goal. Almiron coming in towards the edge of the penalty area, sliding challenge from Elise, and got it away, but Isak was able to pick up the pieces. Byrne chipping it forward. Almiron have made a run in behind 09. Newcastle get it back. They've got a player down actually, and Guimaraes is given the instruction by Botman to put it out of play so that some treatment can be administered here.
I think it's Joe Linton, is it? He's down. Yeah, it's Joe Linton down. He's just feeling. I mean, that is a nightmare for Eddie Howe. Not just about today, but he's so key to how Newcastle play in terms of dragging his team up the pitch when they've got it, when they haven't got it, recovering. He doesn't look happy, Joe Linton, and I'm just thinking that is directing that towards the referee, saying that he got a little bit of a push before he played the ball forward. I don't know whether he was caught late, but he looks in some discomfort.
Well, he's still down receiving treatment, so the first half stoppage time is going to be elongated. We've probably got about a minute left to play when we resume, but the Newcastle medical staff are still attending to Joe Linton. Elsewhere, Fleetwood 0, Derby 2 half-time in League 1. 1 o'clock kick-off in League 2, Harrogate 1, Doncaster 1. And in the FA Cup, it's as you were. Leicester leading 2-0 at Millwall. Ipswich 2-1 up at Wimbledon. Coventry 3, Oxford 1. And Maidstone leads Stevenage 1-0. And what will be the shock of the day so far. So much more to come. And we'll talk you through all of the action, of course, over the course of the afternoon, with Adrian taking you around the grounds. All of the goals as they go in. Over on Talksport 2, Stoke against Brighton. And then Chelsea against Preston. So a double bill of live commentary action for you on Talksport 2 this afternoon, as well as the game day phone-in with Jamie O'Hara and Gabby Agbonlahor from 5:30. Your chance to react to everything that you've seen firsthand and heard over the course of FA Cup third round Saturday. Joe Linton's back on his feet. He's not back on the field as yet. He's just over on the far touchline taking a swig of drink. Newcastle temporarily down to 10. Referee Paulson still hasn't allowed him back on. Sunderland in possession at the back with 09. 09 helping it forward. And Byrne comes across and heads it away.
Not happy, Joe Linton. He's had a go at the assistant on that side. He feels like he was fouled, that nobody saw what happened. And he's still in some discomfort. Huge blow if he has to go off, because he's the one that's just orchestrated that physicality in the duels in midfield. That's just overawed Sunderland a little bit.
Free kick for offside taken by Newcastle, and that's the last action of the first half. Very intense atmosphere, as you would expect. It's a Dan Ballard slice clearance into his own net that is the most significant moment of the afternoon so far. Newcastle dominant in most departments. Their physicality has been something that Sunderland have really struggled to deal with. At half-time in the Weird Time derby, it's Sunderland 0, Newcastle United 1.
Lucy, that was a fascinating first half of football. We thought it might be a little bit cagey. Newcastle really fast out of the blocks, and you mentioned how nervous the Sunderland players look, but they rode the storm early doors. Mick Beale will be happy maybe with the early stages?
Yeah, I think that just the opening couple of minutes where Newcastle managed to get a corner and the noise was loud and the Sunderland players were swinging the legs at it and just a little bit nervous trying to get the first touch, and probably fortunate that they didn't go 1-0 behind early, which would have been a nightmare for them. But then they steadied themselves. But the obvious tactic that Mick Beale has got them is that he wants them organised and quite passive out of possession, which means that Newcastle have had a lot of the ball. You've seen it, they've passed it from centre-back to centre-back, out wide, then back again, and didn't really do that much with it. Actually, it worked a couple of times where they actually forced Newcastle to play it long and come a little bit predictable. But when you play like that, you don't have any control on the game, zero control on the game, and that's what we've seen. And then what then happens once Newcastle's physicality comes into it, then they get the chances, and they've managed to score from one of those chances.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a proper look at the halftime highlights in partnership with Carling.
The Emirates FA Cup halftime highlights on Talksport with Carling, the official beer partner of the Emirates FA Cup and Adobe Women's FA Cup. 18 plus, please drink responsibly.
Not that insight, Lucy Ward, wasn't proper analysis of the of the halftime highlights, but it's been. You mentioned a couple of times the midfield battle, but let's talk about how the goal came about, because actually Newcastle's threats mainly came from the right-hand side of the pitch up until that goal, and we'd seen some brilliant work from Dan Ballard just moments before that, following Isak all the way. No foul, did enough not to give away a penalty. But he had no choice to do what he did. He just unfortunately sliced it into the back of his own net. Yeah,
I mean, the back four for Sunderland and the goalkeeper are full tilt. You know, they're right at the limits of the game. They're defending, you know, at the edge of the game. And Ballard, absolutely no blame on him. I mean, what happened, there's a couple of times where Newcastle managed to get Sunderland out of shape. So they moved them about, so they created space. One was central, where they got Isak through. And the second time was on the left-hand side, where they managed to get Joe Linton. And Joe Linton's running power is absolutely incredible. So he puts the ball in, so somebody puts it in. So whether you've got to try and clear it as a defender, and you know the ball's coming in with such speed, there's people behind you, so you have to make a decision. He tried to clear it over the top, and it went in the back of the net. If he was trying to put it in the back of the net, he'd probably put it over the top, but he knew that Isak was there, and so you have to make a decision, and unfortunately for Ballard, it ended up in the back of the net.
Yeah, it was unfortunate, and it almost perforated the atmosphere a tiny little bit, because it had been so raucous before that, but actually the last kind of 10-15 minutes of the half, the Sunderland fans were sat back and quite quiet.
Yeah, disappointed, I think. What they wanted from their team was to give it a right go against Newcastle. I said that before. So going into challenges and making sure they make good decisions. They know that these players, that's why they're in the Championship, that they're not as good as the Newcastle players who have been playing in the Champions League. So you have to work really, really hard. And then when it's an own goal, you sort of think, you know, that we've given them one there. We've given them the 1-goal lead. So I think it sort of deflated them a little. But then they got going again. But they haven't really seen enough from their team to threaten. Now, as soon as you don't threaten as a team, it just encourages the opposition to come onto you, and that's what Newcastle have done. They don't feel a threat. They don't feel like, well, Jack Clark's going to hurt us if they win it back, or, you know, Rusyn's going to go beyond us. They just feel very comfortable that they can keep everything in front of them.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating second half. Thank you very much, Lucy. That was all thanks to Carling. 18 plus, please drink responsibly.
The Emirates FA Cup halftime highlights on Talksport with Carling, the official beer partner of the Emirates FA Cup and Adobe Women's FA Cup. 18 plus, please drink responsibly.
Elsewhere in the FA Cup today, they're just getting underway in some of the other lunchtime matches in terms of the second half. They're all 12:30 kickoffs. AFC Wimbledon 1, Ipswich Town 2, Coventry 3, Oxford United 1, Maidstone United 1, Stevenage 0, Leicester City 2-0 up at Millwall. And then in League One, one game that kicked off also at 12:30, Derby County leading Fleetwood Town by 2-0. And in League Two, a 1 p.m. kickoff in the first half, still going. It's Harrogate 1, Doncaster Rovers 1. This is FA Cup Game Day Live here on Talksport. Newcastle on top of the Weir Tyne derby, leading by 1-0. Dan Ballard's own goal separating the sides. Sunderland, though, are still in this. A huge second half coming up next, and we'll look ahead to some of the other FA Cup third round fixtures live on Talksport.
The Emirates FA Cup live on Talksport with Carling, the official beer partner of the Emirates FA Cup and Adobe Women's FA Cup. 18 plus, please drink responsibly.
You may not know that you have the power to compare great credit card deals with Compare the Market.
You also may not know that a banana is technically a berry, but a strawberry isn't.
What's that got to do with credit cards?
I thought we were just saying stuff you might not know.
Meerkat your credit card with the power to compare a range of great deals and providers. We'll check your eligibility without it affecting your credit score. From 0% interest purchase offers to balance transfers. Find the credit card that's right for you.
Strawberry. Crazy.
Compare the Market Limited acts as a credit broker, not a lender. Credit is subject to status, UK residents and 18 plus only.
The Emirates FA Cup live on Talksport with Carling, the official beer partner of the Emirates FA Cup and Adobe Women's FA Cup. 18 plus, please drink responsibly.
Today at Centre Parks, I didn't multitask. I saw the gleeful look on my teenager's face as she conquered the zip wire. Today, I didn't juggle meetings and pack lunches. I helped my little boy paint a cute squirrel pot. Today, I didn't stress about a work deadline. I swam underwater aquajetting with my 10-year-old. Life moves too fast. Precious moments last longer at Centre Parks. Cherish every moment.
At Kia, we're switching on the Kia Power On event, featuring the award-winning Kia EV6 with a range of up to 328 miles. Available now with 2.9% APR representative, £1,000 PCP finance deposit contribution, 2 years free servicing, and 1 year Kia Charge Plus when you order by the 29th of February. Search the Kia Power On event. Take the lead. Drive electric. Kia. Movement that inspires. T's and C's apply. Kia Finance. Free servicing offer available until 29th of February. Range based on test conditions and may vary.
With a PC
or laptop
from PC Specialist,
you
can choose the components
that are right
for you.
Gamers,
creators,
designers,
coders.
And when
we bring it all together,
it can create something truly amazing. Build your next gaming PC or laptop at pcspecialist.co.uk.
Easier to play with Windows 11.
Talk about a blast from the past. The 1990s. When McDonald's started using 100% British and Irish beef in our burgers. Back when you actually had to leave the house and head to the arcade if you wanted to play a game with your mates. What a time. It's just one of the little changes McDonald's have been constantly making to the way we source and produce our food over the years. McDonald's. Change a little, change a lot.
Game day. The greatness, the goals, and the glory.
FA Cup Game Day Live
on Talksport.
This is FA Cup Game Day Live on Talksport. Faye Carruthers with you. Second half action of Sunderland Newcastle coming up shortly, with the Premier League side leading by 1-0 at half-time after Sunderland's Dan Ballard turned into his own net. By the way, Callum O'Hare has put Coventry 4-1 up against Oxford in the 12:30 kickoff from the penalty spot, so looking comfortable for Coventry's entrance into the fourth round. This is the big fixture of today's action, but let's continue to look ahead to the rest of the weekend's FA Cup fixtures with Super 6.
The Talksport match predictor with the Super 6 Christmas rollover. Every Saturday until Christmas, the jackpot will roll over if it isn't won, so it could reach a whopping £1 million. 18 plus, terms and conditions apply.
Each week, as you know, we discuss games that are featured within Super 6. Just a reminder for those of you who aren't familiar with Super 6, it's a free-to-play football game where you can win huge jackpots through your own knowledge. Just predict 6 correct scores to win the jackpot. This week it stands at £250,000, and if you don't manage to get 6 correct scores, there are more ways to win, with a guaranteed £5,000 up for grabs every single round if you get the most points, and plenty more as well. Lucy Ward is alongside me. Can you quickly run through the final 3 games on the list? Let's start with our Talksport 2 commentary match, Stoke against Brighton, which kicks off at 3 o'clock today.
Right, so this is the one where I've gone for a little bit of a surprise. I think it's going to be Stoke 2, Brighton 1, simply because I think that Brighton may make more changes than Stoke, and Stoke are doing all right at the moment, so Stoke 2, Brighton 1.
Okay, Super 6 players giving the Championship side little chance of an upset. Only 4% of players predicting a Stoke win along with you. Also at 3 o'clock today, QPR hosts Bournemouth. What's your Super 6 prediction for this one?
I've gone QPR 1, Bournemouth 3. I think that Bournemouth are playing really well and they'll want to continue that.
Yeah, that's what everybody agrees as well. Nearly 900,000 players predicting a win for the Premier League side, while again just 4% predicting an upset. 5:30 this evening, Aston Villa travel to Middlesbrough. This is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, this will be an interesting one because Middlesbrough have got the atmosphere, up here in the northeast. I think it's going to be Middlesbrough 1, Villa 2. I think that Villa might just snatch it.
Ooh, lovely. Only 330,000 entrants agree with Lucy. They expect a 2-1 win for Aston Villa. Stoke against Brighton is live on Talksport 2 this afternoon. Don't forget, while here on Talksport, Adrian Durham will also keep you in touch with all the FA Cup third round matches that kick off at 3 o'clock, with all the goals as they go in on Game Day Live. That's all thanks to Super 6. Don't forget, Super 6 has set up its very own Talksport League. You just need to sign up on the Super 6 website or app using the code TALKS6. That's TALKS6, where you can also win just £100 for topping the league every single round. And remember, get those predictions in by 3 o'clock today. 18 plus, terms and conditions apply.
The Talksport match predictor with the Super 6 Christmas rollover. Predict 6 correct scores for the chance to win a whopping £1 million. Get your entries in by 3 p.m. today with Super 6. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
Got about 4 minutes before the second half kicks off here at the Stadium of Light between Sunderland and Newcastle, with Newcastle leading by a goal to nil. And after FA Cup Game Day Live continues following the conclusion of the match, Adrian Durham based at Vicarage Road today for Watford, who faced Chesterfield. They were top of the National League and they're having a great season, Chesterfield, aren't they? Are they capable of causing a shock?
You bet they are. I just want a bit of consolation for Dan Ballard. At least the own goal, nobody's ever going to talk about it. It's not in a big game, nobody's seen it. That's the main thing for him. I do fancy Chesterfield to at least get a draw here today. Bad omens for Watford. Not won an FA Cup tie since the semi-final in 2019 when they came from 2 down to beat Wolves 3-2. We know what happened in the final. They've not won an FA Cup tie since then. And the last cup tie I saw here at Vicarage Road 4 years ago, they were Premier League Watford. There were 3 up against League One Tranmere at half-time, finished 3-3 and they lost the replay. So I'm not a good omen. Their FA Cup appearances haven't been great since 2019. And as you say, Chesterfield are having an amazing season so far. 7 points clear at the top. Top scorers in the National League. Very entertaining. I saw them beat Portsmouth in the earlier rounds and they did thoroughly deserve the win. And at that time, Portsmouth were flying at the top of League One.
Brilliant, love it. It's going to be fantastic. So many quality games as well. What are you most looking forward to apart from that one?
Well, I think Lucy's got a great point about Stoke Brighton. Stoke under Steve Schumacher are slowly turning things around. The last 2 home games have been 0-0. A lot does depend on the side that De Zerbi puts out. I'm hearing Evan Ferguson is definitely going to start the game, and he hasn't been starting recently, which has been a surprise to a lot. But I think that could be one of those. Gillingham, Sheffield United, League 2, Gillingham. Stephen Clement's in charge. His late dad Ray won the FA Cup with Liverpool and with Spurs. And against Sheffield United, again, it's all determined by the side Chris Wilder picks. But he has come into this, Chris Wilder, saying, listen, this could be momentum. We go there and win, we're in the next round, and then we pick up, and that's another positive for us. So he's looking for some momentum there. But that could possibly be one as well, although Gillingham haven't been brilliant. They have won the last 2 games 1-0.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating, isn't it? Looking forward to hearing you on my journey back home, Aid. Thank you very much. Game Day Live, Adrian and the rest of the team following the conclusion of this match here at the Stadium of Light. We're a couple of minutes from second half kickoff. Let me just alert you to a goal at the Den. Millwall have halved the deficit against Leicester. Duncan Watmore on the score sheet. It's Millwall 1, Leicester 2 currently. We'll of course bring you all of the latest throughout the second half of this match as well. The substitutes out warming up at the moment. We'll see whether either side have decided to make any changes very, very shortly. The atmosphere though, Lucy, it is really strange, isn't it? Because it was so loud before this match. At half time it's been really quiet, and I wonder whether the Sunderland fans feel as if they're not quite getting what they wanted out of their team, and Newcastle feel a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, I think that they'll raise themselves for the second half, Sunderland fans, but what they're sat thinking now is, if we lose to these, seriously, if we lose, that's what it is. That discomfort is horrific when you're a football fan. They don't want to see the next however long it is before they play again, when Newcastle say, well, we came here and beat you in the FA Cup. They want to see a little bit more from their team. I think their team has showed a little bit of inexperience. I think that right from the start they didn't have as much time as they thought they had in midfield. They've not learned from that, and that's because they're young and they're inexperienced. However, what Mick Beale will be thinking is how I've set them up and structured them defensively should be able to carry them through that bit, but they have to be quicker. Ekwa, what a player he is, but he needs to show it. Like, he needs to step up, because this is a stage that these players want to be on.
Yeah, they're losing the midfield battle at the moment, aren't they? But you made a couple of comments in commentary which I hadn't actually thought about. The communication that these players normally have with each other, they're not able to hear themselves.
Yeah, I mean, this place is loud normally, but not as loud as, particularly the opening bit. I think it's sort of settled down, but I think that opening bit where the corner came in from Newcastle and they were all over the place, Sunderland, I think then they couldn't hear each other. But it's about who are you going to bring in to make sure that Guimaraes doesn't get himself on the ball and can dictate things. You've got to get closer to Joe Linton, because physically he's winning every battle, whoever he's competing with, and that doesn't take much skill. That just means that you've got to stand up to these players, and I'm sure that will be the message from Beale at half time.
Yeah, it's interesting. You can tell I do Premier League matches most of the time. I'm looking at my clock going, Craig Pawson's not made the players come out yet. Where's the bell gone in the dressing rooms? Oh, here they come. Newcastle players out first to a chorus of boos, as you can hear from the Stadium of Light contingent. The Newcastle fans all packed down on the left-hand side, few of them still in the bar. They'll be making their way out very shortly. I'm sure they'll give a similar kind of reception to the Sunderland fans as they make their way outside. We've had 16 minutes worth of a break so far. I think we all kind of needed it a little bit just to regather our thoughts, get a little bit more energy to bring into this second half. We thought it might be a cagey one, and when you look back at even some of the classic time-weird derbies in the past, a lot of them just settled by the odd goal here or there, and this is what might happen here. I'm hoping, from a neutral's point of view and a Dan Ballard point of view, that it's not settled on an own goal, because that would be particularly cruel. Listen to the reception that the Sunderland players get as they come out onto this second half. It's finely poised. The big question we all want to know the answer to: can Sunderland get themselves back into it? Our commentary team here on Talksport for second half action of the Weir Tyne derby: Lucy Ward and Jim Proudfoot.
And there are no changes in personnel made by either manager at this point. So Sunderland lining up Patterson in goal, Hume, O'Nien, Ballard and Elise, Ekwa and Neal, Pritchard, Bellingham, Clark and Rusin. Newcastle, Dubravka in goal, Trippier, Scher, Botman and Byrne, Longstaff, Guimaraes and Joelinton, Almiron, Isak and Gordon. We're back underway. Sunderland attacking the south stand here at the Stadium of Light in this second half. Newcastle kicking from right to left, immediately caught offside. Almiron had strayed a little bit too far forward. You know, Newcastle have never conceded an FA Cup goal in Sunderland. And if they can still say that in an hour's time, they'll be through to round 4 with a prized scalp.
Yeah, the second goal here.
Oh, it could come now, because the ball has been rolled in for 2. It's a terrible mistake by Pierre Ekwa, who's been caught in possession, trying to play out from the back on the edge of the box. And Newcastle United have exploited the situation to double their lead. A horrible, horrible moment for Ekwa. And Sunderland had just handed this on a plate to Newcastle United. The Ballard own goal in the first half. Alexander Isak with a tap-in the second. It's Sunderland 0, Newcastle United 2.
Yeah, I mean, that is just shooting themselves in the foot twice in this game. And right at the start, it's just too easy. Ozzy on the edge of the box. It was Almiron. He just does so well. High press. He saw the opportunity. Ekwa wasn't moving the ball quick enough. He tried to take it past Almiron. He nicked it off him, squared the ball. And Isak puts it into the back of the net, and this is a long way for Sunderland now. It was already a long way at 1-0, but you come out, everything that the manager said to them at half-time, out of the window. I was just about to say the second goal is so important. I could see Newcastle coming out of the blocks, and look what happens.
Alexander Isak with the 99th goal of his career. He's now scored in 3 straight. And Newcastle lead it by 2-0, and with the 2-goal advantage, they will immediately make a change. Joelinton, who was injured towards the end of the first half, did reappear for the second. They're not going to take any further risks. He's actually looking in some discomfort as he leaves the field. But Lewis Miley, from up the road from here in Gateshead, comes on. Another local lad in this Newcastle team. And Sunderland with so much to do. 2-0 down, and they've shot themselves in the foot right at the start of this second half.
Right, you'll see now who has got it, who's got the strength now, the mental strength to stand up, because the probability is that Sunderland are not going to win this game, what we've seen from them in the first half. But can you stop it from being 3-0? Can you stop it from being 4-0? No, are you a young player who's going to make the name for themselves in this game, in the professional football? Are you going to go on to have a career? Because moments like this, you need to stand up and be counted.
Here's Ekwa for Sunderland from distance, took a deflection. Dubravka did really well to kick it away. He was diving to his left, the deflection took the ball to his right, and he reacted spontaneously to throw up a right foot and be able to kick it away. Then Hume is brought down right on the edge of the penalty area. A spirited response from Sunderland as they look to halve the deficit.
Yeah, great reaction from Sunderland. And in fact, it was Ekwa, and that would have been a goal for him, and it got a couple of deflections, but Dubravka managed to save it. But they did commit themselves far up the pitch, Sunderland, to have that effort from Ekwah, and that would have been interesting, had that nestled in. They've made Ekwah feel better, that's for sure.
So Alex Pritchard stands over the free kick. Important from a Sunderland perspective that they showed some response immediately to get the crowd back in voice. So Pritchard level with the right-hand edge of the box. He's 4 yards adrift of the edge of the penalty area. Sunderland have plenty forward, but they got lurkers around the edge of the box as well for seconds. Pritchard to take this, right-footed, swung in, not the best at all, easily headed away by Isak. Ekwah can pick it up, works it to Neil, and Neil looking to briskly play the ball to his left-hand side, has hit it far too hard for Clark, and it goes out of play for a throw that will be taken on the Newcastle United right. What does Mick Beale need to do? Because we're talking in the first half about when you stick, when you twist to get back into the game. Now they've got to be proactive. They've got to go for this.
Yeah, and the actual reaction to the second goal was good, but the fact that they were playing out from the back and trying to build at the start of the second half when Newcastle had players up the pitch, it's either come from the manager or the players are really inexperienced and naive, and they show quite a lot of naivety, which you'd expect, but you've got to learn. Good players, if they make a mistake, you just have to tell them once. You can't keep telling them twice, 3 times. So these Sunderland players need to learn very, very quickly.
Now Gordon works the ball forward through the midfield for Newcastle. And they end up getting a throw. Elsewhere in the FA Cup, Wimbledon 1, Ipswich 2, but Harry Pell sent off for the Dons. And Tom Cannon has given Leicester a 3-1 lead at Millwall. Duncan Watmore had got Millwall back within 1. But Tom Cannon's made it 3-1. Now, no foul. And, there is a foul. The referee has stopped play. You can't hear the whistle. And Newcastle continued pushing forward down the right, but the referee has pulled it back for a foul that happened about 10 seconds ago.
Yeah, that's Dan Neil, and he just managed to get a touch on the ball to pass it away, and he was fouled by Trippier. But what happened then, because he didn't give the foul, or didn't seem to give the foul, and Newcastle are attacking, and it certainly was. It could have led to another Newcastle goal. This place would have gone to pieces.
Sunderland 0, Newcastle 2. First cup meeting in any competition between these two sides since the late 1970s. There was late drama in those 2 games, a pair of League Cup ties that both legs ended 2-2, and Sunderland won a penalty shootout at St James's 7-6. That was back, I think, in 1979. They fought back that day and got to fight back again here because Newcastle are dominant. And again, Sunderland desperate to play out from the back, and Newcastle setting traps for them and exploiting it.
So the last thing I expected Mick Beale to do with his team when they came out in the second half was start to play out from the back, that's for sure. They're just winning it high, Newcastle. This is what they do in the Premier League against the best teams in the country.
And they got it again, and they'll work it forward out towards the right flank where the offside flag has stayed down. It must have been a close call that against Trippier. Pulled back towards the edge of the penalty area. An opportunity just to roll it in, but Longstaff would have been offside and made no attempt to go for the ball as Guimaraes played it past him. And Patterson is able to pick it up. We're 7 minutes into the second half. It's Sunderland 0, Newcastle 2 on Talksport. Here's Lucy Ward.
Yeah, so all the problems that Sunderland are having in this second half is because they're playing out from the back. I know he wants his players to be brave, but it's led to the second goal, and it might have absolutely killed the game off, and they've lost it a couple of times since in their own defensive third, and I'm not sure that that's the way that Sunderland are going to get back in this game.
Well, the Black Cats needing some inspiration. Newcastle comfortable, deserving the advantage, even if it has been handed to them in fortuitous circumstances with a couple of individual errors. The first one completely understandable. But Dan Ballard and Pierre Ekwah will, I'm sure, both remember this if it stays this way for a while. Gordon sends a lofted ball across the halfway line for Kieran Trippier, who will bring it down. Almiron making a run ahead of him. Trippier's got it again. And now clipped by Almiron down the line. Longstaff chasing after it and obediently will take it down towards the corner flag and then check. Easy for Ekwah and Elise to be able to clear. Goes out of play for a Sunderland throw in their left back position. But the problem is they need more possession, Sunderland. They need it in better areas.
Yeah.
They've had one shot on target so far this afternoon, and we played thick end of an hour.
Yeah, I think that when Sunderland do win the ball back, it's what areas are you going to counter into? So Jack Clark on that left-hand side, can he be a little bit more attacking? Can he be covered? Can Joe Bellingham go over and cover, stop him from having to do a lot of defensive work? But at the moment, they're playing out from the back and they're losing it in really dodgy areas.
And they've just done it again. Caught in possession, nearer the edge of their own penalty area than the halfway line. And Newcastle work it down towards Dan Burn. Burn finding Anthony Gordon. Gordon up against Hume is the only player that's been booked so far. Knocked away as Ballard steps up from the defensive line. Newcastle winning lots of second ball at the moment. Almiron to Trippier. Trippier's low ball in. That's much better defending by the stretching Ballard to steer it away. Had to play it. And he's got it away for a corner.
Yeah, Ballard is a good player. There'll be teams above watching him. The centre-back for Sunderland scored an unfortunate own goal, but he has defended really, really well. I wrote down Sunderland need to be braver on the ball, but not in the defensive third. They need to be braver on the ball up the pitch. Get the ball up the pitch and play in the central and forward positions.
Well, Dan Ballard, a Northern Ireland international. He started his career at Arsenal. And really did well at Blackpool in a loan spell, which earned him his move here. Corner has been knocked away, and Newcastle will come again in the next phase of play. Back out towards that right flank where Trippier and Almiron are linking up. Almiron saw the ball go behind him. He was able to react quickly enough to keep it in. Now slip forward towards Gordon, who'll take a touch inside the penalty area, but Eckwa's back defending and clears straight into Guy Moraes. Ball goes off him and out of play for a goal kick, and he stands in front of the Newcastle United fans with a double fist pump, showing his delight at the way the afternoon is unfolding, trying to whip up a little bit of intensity.
Yeah.
Sunderland take the goal kick and again play out from the back.
Yeah, I mean, that's good, but also, if I was a Newcastle fan, I'd be like, well, you need to play better in the Premier League, mate. It's all very well when you're 2-0 up against a team division lower, and I know what he's trying to do, but it was a little bit dramatic.
God, tough school, Luce.
Yeah, but it's true though. They want these fans, these Newcastle fans, want their players to stand up in the Premier League while they're struggling. They're beating a bunch of kids at the moment. It's not an easy place to come.
Guy Moraes out towards Kieran Trippier. Trippier slipping it through, and little double ricochet. It's come off Ballard last, according to the assistant referee, and a corner has been given, which is Newcastle's second of the second half and their fourth of the game. There's little sign, just that little flurry with the Eckwa shot that Dubravka did well to save, but no real sign of a Sunderland fight back yet. We've played 10 minutes since Isak made it 2-0.
Yeah, that wasn't a corner either, just seen the replay. It came off Longstaff, but Newcastle have been given the corner.
So Trippier's going to take it. It's a right-footed away swinger which will bounce towards the edge of the penalty area. Miley able to bring the ball down. A massive occasion for him at just 17, playing in one of these games for the first time. And back inside the penalty area. Strong challenge, a good one. Had to be won there by Hume. The two Newcastle players converging on him. Then as he plays it out, he gave it away, but Dan Burn can't make anything of it. Got there ahead of Pritchard, but it goes out of play for a goal kick. Let's get some team news from the 3 o'clock kickoffs. We'll start at Stoke. Adam Bridge.
6 changes for Stoke from the 0-0 with Ipswich, including a debut for Everson in goal, who's joined on loan from Leicester, and rare starts for Wesley and Haksabanovic. As for Brighton, 4 changes from the goalless draw with West Ham for Bruggen, Dunk, Modder and Ferguson all start.
And it's live on Talksport 2 from 3 o'clock. Sunderland free kick here. They trail 2-0. We'll go to QPR next. Alfie Reynolds.
And it's QPR that make 3 changes. Drew, Fox and Armstrong all coming in for Bournemouth, mid-table in the Premier League. 7 changes in total as they start their cup run. QPR against Bournemouth.
National League South side Maidstone 16 minutes away from making it through. Tier 6 side, high-flying Tier 5 side Chesterfield at Watford this afternoon. Here's Alex Crew.
And if there is to be an upset on this third round Saturday, it may well come here. Both teams make 5 changes, including a first Watford start for striker Rhys Healey. National League leaders Chesterfield leave top scorer Will Grigg and the experienced Michael Jacobs on the bench. Amongst their alterations, it's Watford against Chesterfield.
Alex Pritchard bringing the ball forward for Sunderland. Hit a rising drive which might just have kissed the top of the bar on its way over. That was a better moment for Sunderland, but it remains 2-0 to Newcastle.
Tell you what, I wasn't far away, Pritchard, and if by some matter that Sunderland can get themselves back in this game, because Newcastle have looked comfortable in the second half, but if Sunderland can get a goal back, this place will explode and then we'll have a game on our hands. But Newcastle just looking for that third and the dominant team.
Here's Miley bringing the ball forward. Good strong challenge coming in on him. Out of play for a Newcastle throw. Team news from Kent, Gillingham, Sheffield United, Ollie Clint.
5 changes for Sheffield United, but new loan signing Ben Brereton Diaz only makes the bench. League 2 Gillingham unchanged from their win over Colchester at Priestfield. It's Gillingham against Sheffield United.
Ollie, thank you very much indeed. We'll have all the updates from the goals as they go in across the afternoon in the FA Cup, the EFL and the National League as well. And 2 live commentary games for you. Stoke Brighton and then Chelsea in action at 5:30 at home to Preston. Both of those games on Talksport 2. This one 2-0 in Newcastle's favour. They're on the front foot and on halfway here with Bruno Guimaraes.
Yeah, the game actually in the last few minutes when I've been going around the grounds has opened up, so it just means that Sunderland have got a little bit more joy, but also when Newcastle win it back there's a lot of space to play it into, so it's a risky game for Sunderland to play, but like you said, Jim, they're going to have to do something at some point.
First goal of Charlie Adams, Rangers Fleetwood boss, scored by Jaden Stockley, but they're still 2-1 down at home to Derby with 13 minutes to go there. We've got half an hour to go here. Newcastle work it forward again. Isak with a right foot touch which just threatened to get away round the back of O'Nien, couldn't quite beat him. And it was a very important piece of defending from the Sunderland man. Now to be played forward through the midfield by Ballard. And Roosev's done well chasing up. He's had no service to speak of all afternoon, and in getting the ball there, he's been judged to have given it away.
Do you know what? He did so well then, Jim. He got his body in between the ball and Dan Burn, and then he got done for, I don't know what it was. Was it handball? I don't even know. I think he gave a throw in the end, didn't he? But it looked like he was fouled, Roosin.
Craig Paulson just indicating that it is a throw, which will be taken over on the far side. He thought he should have had a free kick. Newcastle thought they might have had one for a handball, and it's a Newcastle throw that restarts play, and they very quickly get another one. Sunderland fans all around us doing what they can to lift their side. 42,000 Black Cat supporters in here today, singing their side on, but trailing 2-0 as Pritchard, who's come closer than any other Sunderland player, makes it to the left-hand side of the penalty area. Pulls it back here for Ekwa. Ekwa a long way out. He's gone back behind square for Hume. Hume will work it down towards the Sunderland near touchline there, right. Dan Burn is doing everything he can to stop Dan Neil making any progress. He goes out of play for a Sunderland throw. Back towards Bellingham. Bellingham inside his own half for a 9. And Luke O'Nien, the former Wycombe man, working through the centre of midfield for Ekwa, back to Ballard. Sunderland with more possession now than they've had at any stage in the game. It could, of course, play into Newcastle hands on the counter-attack, but Sunderland have got to go for it. Trailing 2-0, but in possession with Pritchard. He's got the time to turn in the midfield and get away from Longstaff. Hume couldn't supply the return ball, but it's out for a throw, which will be taken on the Sunderland right. 2-0 Newcastle.
Yeah, Pritchard's doing well. He's involved in everything. He's got a bit of game craft about him. He's not as physical as one or two others, but when the ball comes to his feet, he keeps hold of it, and he's had that shot. He's created things on the left-hand side as well, but like you say, because the game's more open, Sunderland have had a little bit more of the ball. They have to use it well, and then think about what if we lose it. We don't want Newcastle to score in the third.
Here's Hume. Ball towards Bellingham. Gordon coming back, and Bellingham told of the fact by all the Sunderland supporters. Gordon fouled him. It's a free kick, no yellow card. Give Sunderland the opportunity to get more bodies forward again. Free kick taken by Hume, but he's worked it back behind square inside the centre circle. Ballard forward for Ekwa. Ekwa will work it between the lines for Pritchard. Good turn from him, trying to get away from Guimaraes. Dan Neal's got it now and played out towards the left-hand side for Elise. Neal. Bellingham making a run forward. And Neal has shanked a crossfield ball out towards the right-hand touchline. Hume did everything he could to retrace his steps quickly enough to be able to keep it in. Big track marks on the field where he slid in on both knees but was unable to keep it in. Goes out of play for a throw. Very easy game to play from up here, but they've got to be more proactive. Bellingham was the ball there.
Yeah, I do think that, you know, they're getting themselves in good position, Sunderland, but just not got the last ball quality yet to sustain attacks and have a little bit of control in the final third. But Newcastle are giving them a chance, and what I mean by that is they're letting them have a bit of control in Newcastle's half, and you know, they still look comfortable defensively, Newcastle.
There's going to be so much FA Cup action to reflect on by the time that Jeff Stelling's back Monday morning at 6 alongside Ali McCoy. On the show, they're going to be joined by England hooker Jamie George. But all of the reaction to all of the big stories over the sporting weekend, including Arsenal against Liverpool, which comes your way. It's the second half of a double bill tomorrow. You won't hear that anywhere else on national radio tomorrow. And then Jeff and Ali from 6 on Monday morning. If you fancy something different on your morning commute, be sure to check out the Chris Evans Breakfast Show. It's weekdays from 6:30 on Virgin Radio, which you can listen to on DAB or download the app. Gordon giving chase here, but Patterson can get it away, and it's still 2-0.
Tell you what, Jim, it's become more open central midfield, and you know why? Joe Linton's gone off. And I would talk about his importance, his physicality and his running power and the way he covers ground, and Sunderland have just had more of the ball in those areas simply because of his absence.
Oxford have a goal back at Coventry, but it's still 4-2 down. Guimaraes teasing it over the top. Gordon making a run, trying to make life difficult for Hume, and some afters. And there's the first real flashpoint of the afternoon. Ballard is across, and then Isak took exception to his reaction and barrels him out of the way. And there's plenty of finger pointing going on. And Craig Pawson just takes a watching brief before deciding how many he's going to put here.
Hume needs to be careful. Hume needs to be careful because he was just got to grips with Anthony Gordon, and they look like they've got hold of each other, but he's got his yellow card out, the referee.
So Hume has been booked, which is why Lucy says that he's got to be careful, but the yellow card has been shown to Gordon for his reaction, and they're just reliving and discussing the incident now.
Yeah, I think he's saying to him, you can have it afterwards, because it doesn't look particularly friendly between them. The ball comes over, and they both Hume had hold of him, and in the end Anthony Gordon just threw him off, and he still had hold, and then everybody blazes in. Isak comes in, knocks Ballard out of the way, and it's the first little bit we've seen like that, isn't it? And Anthony Gordon just so frustrated that he'd got hold of his shirt.
And Azariah Rusin doing what he can to keep the ball in, but it was a battle he lost. It's out for a Newcastle throw, which they'll take in the left back position. And it remains Sunderland 0, Newcastle 2. Haven't won on this ground since 2011. But they're set fair here with quarter of the game remaining. Newcastle have it again with Almiron. Back through the midfield for Guimaraes. Guimaraes takes the first touch, brings it under control, pings it over, really fired it in Burns' direction, and his legs the longest on the field today. Do well to stretch and keep the ball in, and then it comes off Bellingham and goes out for a throw that'll be taken on the Newcastle United left midway through the second half.
These Sunderland fans are right behind these young players, but when you've got young players, they're inconsistent, they make mistakes, and it's frustrating in a match as big as this, but they'll learn a lot from this. You know, playing a team like Newcastle in the Premier League, doing really, really well. On a little bit of a downward slope in terms of the recent form, but done so well in the last couple of years, and this is a lesson, and they're staying in it. 2-0, I thought, I think they might collapse here, but they haven't. They've reacted really well to going 2-0 behind.
Luke O'Nien gets the ball away. Newcastle win it back in the midfield with Almiron. Alice drawn out of position from the left back role, so there's space out there for Trippier, and Guimaraes has done well to work it out in that direction. Trippier's got it now. He's 10 yards from the corner flag. Plenty of movement for him. Pulls it back for Guimaraes, who fashions the ball in. Ballard's clearance was poor, and then O'Nien with a sensational block has kept Sunderland just about in it. That is a magnificent piece of defending. Almiron with the shot as it broke his way off Ballard. He's hit it left-footed, and the Sunderland defender, Luke O'Nien, has worn it, but has got his head and his chin to it and diverted it past the post and out of play for a corner.
That is hilarious. Everybody's laughing apart from Luke O'Nien, who looks like he's got some birds tweeting above his head, because that hit him absolutely flush in the forehead, but it saved a certain goal.
Coventry 5, Oxford 2 in the West Midlands. The Sky Blues, the 87 winners, are going through. In comes this latest Newcastle corner, which is easily headed away. Brought down by Gordon on the edge of the penalty area. Couldn't get himself into a shooting position. Sunderland will be able to clear with Jack Clark. The Black Cats just haven't been able to get into the game at all so far, and that is, I think, been one of the biggest areas of their regret when they sit back and decode how the day has gone.
In this half, though, Jim, they've allowed him to be a little bit freer up the pitch, but they've just not got the ball to him. He's not doing as much defensive work. I think that Dan Neal's covering him a little bit in those wide areas, but they need to get the ball to him.
Newcastle winning back with Guimaraes. Forward from Byrne. Gordon with a flamboyant little flick with his right foot back behind his left leg. Then Almiron helps it into space out towards Trippier. Just couldn't quite get it out between his feet to start with, but Newcastle is still on the front foot. Isak can't find a way through. Picked up, though, in the midfield again by Bruno Guimaraes. Dan Byrne sauntering forward. Has it on the bottom left-hand corner of the penalty area with his beloved Newcastle leading 2-0. High ball in towards the far post. Too high and too long. Out of play for a goal kick that will be taken by Sunderland. Could be game on at Millwall. Millwall 2, Leicester 3. That's how it finished when the two sides met in the league a few weeks ago. Zian Fleming has just pulled one back for Millwall. So they're back within a goal with 3 minutes of normal time to go in that as they look to try and get themselves a replay. Sunderland not quite at the stage where they need a miracle, but not too far short. 2 down and 20 minutes to go. Newcastle still very good value for the advantage that has been garnered with a Dan Ballard own goal and Alexander Isak.
Yeah, I think that at the moment Newcastle are just keeping Sunderland at arm's length. Sunderland are huffing and puffing, just trying to create something, but nothing real in the final third. Like I said, they're getting a little bit more space in the central areas because Joe Linton's missing, but they're not making the most of it, and that's just the difference in quality of the two sets of players.
Before he goes from Botman, now to Trippier. Trippier back through the midfield. Newcastle forced with Guimaraes to go all the way back towards Dubravka, who did make a very significant save himself moments after Newcastle had taken a 2-0 lead to deny Pierre Ekwa. Gordon, a strong challenge coming in on him from Bellingham, and then an even stronger one from Guimaraes on Pritchard, and it's a yellow card for the Newcastle midfielder. No stranger to one. That's his 13th of the season.
Well, Pritchard is just trying to go off the back of Guimaraes, and he managed to get something on it, Guimaraes, but just caught Pritchard at the same time. But it would have been away then against the two centre-backs. And like I say, Pritchard has been a standout player for Sunderland in this second half. If they're going to create anything, and Guimaraes is just having a bit of a chew at the referee.
Here's the 5th successive game in all competitions in which he's been booked. Only the second FA Cup tie he's ever played in. Scored in the first, but that was a Newcastle defeat against Sheffield Wednesday. They've not got a good record in this competition, beaten at this stage in each of the last 3 seasons and 7 of the last 11, but 2-0 up here. Now Pritchard, with the penalty area loaded, had the chance just to serve it forward and went square instead. Newcastle then won the seconds and threatened to be able to hit on the counter-attack. Sunderland aren't getting themselves up the field often enough to pass up an opportunity, just to launch it long to see what happens. And
decision making, and that's again, you know, you talk about younger players making the right decision at the right time.
Coventry 6, Oxford 2. 2-0 here to Newcastle. Have Sunderland won a corner? No, goal kick. There's a little double ricochet. And despite Jack Clark's protests, it is a goal kick to Newcastle and Martin Dubravka.
Yeah, you can't believe it, Jack Clark. It's the first time really he's fronted up Kieran Trippier. And I just watched the replay, and I'm not sure it was a goal kick, but Kieran Trippier put his arm in the air, faced the referee as if it's obvious that it was a goal kick. Not so sure.
2 quick goals then for Coventry. 6-2 up against Oxford. Matt Golden's got them both. He's up to 9 for the season. Ipswich now 3-1 up away to 10-man Wimbledon. Those games approaching their conclusion. This one's got 17 minutes to go. Derby 3-1 up at Fleetwood in the league. Tom Barkhausen is the game about to go into stoppage time. Newcastle play out from the back, leading 2-0. Guimaraes, the man that's got the ball, sending it long for Isak, who's 12th of the season, has given Newcastle this little bit of breathing space in the second half.
Tell you what, Trippier's done well against Jack Clark. A couple of times Jack Clark's got it, and he's basically used all his experience against the young player.
Now Pritchard towards the edge of the area. Good save by the diving Dubravka. Got a strong right palm to it to beat it away. The Pritchard's hit the top of the bar and forced a good save out of Dubravka in this second half. Sunderland will come again with Clark, and he's been fouled 7 yards from the corner flag, and a chance to whip this in.
I'll tell you what happened there. Pritchard had it and nobody really closed him that much down, so he used the outside of his foot, and because Jack Clark was so frustrated in the last twice he's had it, he didn't follow it in, and if he'd have followed it in, it'd have been there in front of Trippier to just have a little bit of a pass into the goal. You've got to just stay on it all the time. You cannot get frustrated, and it's a great effort from Pritchard, but they've got themselves a free kick in a really good position, Sunderland.
So can they cast themselves a lifeline? 15 minutes to go. Pritchard, the player that will take it. Every Sunderland outfield player is forward around the edge of the penalty area, apart from Hume, who stands inside the centre circle. There's one Newcastle player in the wall. That's Almiron. And Dubravka putting in there to protect the cheeky one driven in towards the near post. Ballard in amongst those. It's fired in eventually and cleared by the stooping Isak. Back out to Pritchard. Pritchard trying to turn, trying to work the ball in again. He's done well to find Elise, who's still forward. And then the Sunderland try and stop the ball coming away. Clark has leant into Guimaraes and fouled him, and it's a free kick that Newcastle want to take quickly. Botman fires it upfield. The referee's not ready yet, and just waiting to see if Guimaraes gets back to his feet before the free kick can be taken. But there's another wasted opportunity.
Yeah, Ekwa had the ball, and Dan Neil and Guimaraes he basically threw his body in between Dan Neil and the ball, and it just made Dan Neil again a really well-earned free kick, just to let a bit of pressure off Newcastle. Sunderland had the ball right up the pitch again.
It's only 12:30 kickoffs. Ipswich going through at Wimbledon, Coventry going through at home to Oxford, Leicester still hanging on at Millwall, and Maidstone, fourth in National League South, that's tier 6, still lead Stevenage by a goal to nil. That would be a massive shock, overturning a 3-league deficit against the Stevenage side, who are in one of the highest positions they've ever been in the league structure in their history. Newcastle bring the ball forward. Almiron scampering after it with his very upright running style, has done well to keep it in. He's pulled it back for Trippier. Trippier to Guimaraes near the edge of the penalty area. Alexander Isak drops off. Ekwa stumbles, but Newcastle can't take advantage of that. Trippier flicking it, hits Clark, and he gets another go. And then Trippier works it back towards halfway, where Botman will be able to pick it up. And then Sven Botman drops his shoulder, plays it through the midfield. Miley coming onto it, links up and just gives it away straight to Clark, and Sunderland will be able to bring it forward. Running towards the edge of the penalty area, Clark tried to slip into his right hand side for Hume, but he couldn't get it past Longstaff, and now Newcastle can break, and will do so quickly with Gordon, 9, forced to take one from the team, just came across, shoved him to the ground, and that'll be a yellow card.
Yeah, I mean, Sunderland had just committed bodies up the pitch. Jack Clark running with the ball, they all expected some sort of pass from him or a shot. He lost it, and then just mean that 09 knew that he had to take Anthony Gordon out, just so that all his teammates could get back and defend a free kick. Absolutely no intention of getting the ball, just basically shoulder barged them out of the way and allowed them to recoup, because they were really out of shape then.
And Luke O'Nien scored a stoppage time winner in the third round last season. That was at Shrewsbury, and it's going to be extraordinarily dramatic if he can repeat that this season. Newcastle 2 up with 12 minutes to go, and they'll feel as though they're nearly there already, but another goal now would set the seal on it, surely. Ipswich have won their 3-1 winners at Wimbledon, the first result of the afternoon in the FA Cup. So what can Newcastle muster from here? Maidstone have done it. They have held on. They've beaten Stevenage by a goal to nil, which is some achievement that. I think there's 69 places between the two in the league structure. Maidstone have beaten Stevenage 1-0 and will have a 6th-tier team in the 4th round. Newcastle hoping to join them. Looking good value at the moment. 2-0 they lead. Trippier swinging the free kick in. It's headed away by Ekwa inside his penalty area. Gordon's going to be able to take it on down the right flank. He's pulled it back, but that'll be easy for Hume to clear over on the far touchline. Then Clark controlling possession, turning on the edge of his own box and almost presenting it to Gordon. But Sunderland get it away again with Hume. Over towards the far touchline. Newcastle have won it back and won it back easily. It's Gordon from a tight angle across the face of Patterson's goal and just wide.
Yeah, they've not got an outlet, so Jack Clark's receiving the ball on the edge of his own area and he looks up and he's the one that needs to be right on the halfway line, so he ends up getting pressed because Newcastle are so good. They're elite at pressing in the final third. The structure's very good, and Sunderland have found to their cost a number of times that they've lost the ball in dangerous areas and been punished for it.
Here's Dan Burn for Newcastle. And he goes out of play off Hume for a Newcastle United throw. Harrogate 2, Doncaster 1 in the 1 o'clock kickoff in League 2. But no changes have been made by Sunderland. You look at what they've got on the bench. They've got the young midfielder striker Chris Rigg. They've got striker Adil Washic, who's only started 4 games since moving here. There's not a lot of experience. There's not a lot of depth there. But Mick Beale hasn't yet decided that he even wants to bring fresh legs on here with still 10 minutes or so to go.
Yeah, I think he probably thinks that any changes would weaken his side and weaken the balance that they've got. He's probably got his best 11 for this game out there and seeing what they can do. I sort of understand that. What he doesn't want to do as Sunderland manager is concede anymore.
And Leicester are through. They've won 3-2 at Millwall. And despite the late scare of Zian Fleming pulling one back with 5 minutes to go. Trey Hume back to Luke O'Nien for Sunderland, just short of 250 games for the club now. Long diagonal for him. He's trying to get Pritchard into play down the left-hand side, but he was easily headed by Trippier back to his goalkeeper. And Dubravka will bowl it out now towards Dan Burn. Burn playing it down the line. And Longstaff flicking it forward. It's hit O'Nien and goes out of play for a throw that will be taken on the Newcastle left-hand side. It's Tino Livramento, whose name is being chanted by the Newcastle fans. He's out warming up at the moment. What a favourite he already is after his move from Southampton.
Yes, such a good young player. When they're talking about him coming almost a steal initially, they had to pay a little bit more for him, but certainly a super fullback.
Now, crowd confirmed just a shade under 45,000 here today. And it's the minority who are going to be going home happy, seemingly. Isak playing the ball forward. Hume can easily knock it away, and it's still 2-0 to Newcastle with 8 minutes of normal time to go.
I tell you what, Jim, I'm still struggling with the kit clash. I have to check what socks have they got on, because the kits just look so similar. And it's not just on TV, it's when you're here. I don't know, I'm not sure that it was a good idea for both stripes, and I know it's towards the end of the game, but I still keep looking and thinking, who's on the ball here?
It's Newcastle at the moment. Now, if you're colourblind, this will be horrendous.
Absolutely horrendous.
Newcastle will bring it forward now with Dan Burn. Down towards Gordon. Gordon through the midfield towards Longstaff, and back for Anthony Gordon again. Now picking it up in the centre of midfield. Guy Moraes can turn. Excellent ball out towards Miggy Almiron, who just got caught from behind by Elise. And that'll be a free kick to Newcastle, 15 yards inside the Sunderland half. 2-0 they lead with 7 minutes to go. Just a reminder that you're listening to Game Day exclusive on Talksport, and at the conclusion of this game, Adrian Durham will be taking you around the grounds with all of the goals as they go in from the FA Cup. Leagues 1, 2, the National League as well. 2 live games for you on Talksport 2. Stoke Brighton 3, Chelsea Preston at 5:30. 2 more live FA Cup ties for you tomorrow. Manchester City Huddersfield, 2 o'clock here on Talksport. And then Arsenal-Liverpool, 4:30. You won't hear it anywhere else on national radio tomorrow, only on Talksport, as Arsenal take on Liverpool. This one, 7 minutes to go. Sunderland fans still in fine voice, but it's songs of defiance rather than jubilation at the moment.
Yeah, Newcastle just managing the game at the moment and doing it very, very well, taking the sting out of anything that Sunderland do and just trying to see it out.
Coventry 6, Oxford 2, a result as Newcastle bring the ball forward. Trippier playing it back through the midfield for Bruno Guimaraes. He's been able to make things tick. He's had a little bit of time in there to be able to do it. Gets it past Bellingham, it's pulled back, and Isak was just waiting for it. Ballard steered it clear of him. He's actually played very well second half, Dan Ballard, in response to that unfortunate own goal, which, let's reiterate, he had to play the ball. If he'd not played it, it would have gone in anyway.
Listen, Jim, the club's watching him and his reaction, the way he's defended since making that mistake, and thinking he'll do for me, because he's got every attribute as a centre-back as well as that attitude and the mentality.
A little bit of action on the Sunderland bench beneath us, but Newcastle on the front foot again as the ball is played in. Ballard on that occasion able to just get his feet out of the way to stop him doing it again. There's no Newcastle player coming. You've got to shout that time to leave it. The ball ultimately goes out of play. It's going to be a Sunderland ball, and they're going to make a change, and they're going to bring Abdullah Bar on to replace Nazaro Rusin. So Rusin off, and Bar comes on. He came on for 70 minutes of the game of the weekend.
Tell you what, Jim, if from a neutral perspective, which is where I'm coming from, a Sunderland goal now, even though it doesn't look likely, it would be very, very interesting with a few minutes left. I just want to hear this stadium get as loud as it possibly could, but it doesn't look likely that will happen, because I think Newcastle are in control of it.
So Bar's come on, Lucy, on the wing. He's a winger. He'll often play on the left, but he's come on the right hand side. Now he's...
Yeah, they don't have a number 9 in the traditional sense, Sunderland, anymore, and I think that's to their detriment at times, particularly, they sort of need one to play into today. I think that might have helped.
Hume goes back for 09, back for Trey Hume again. Here is Barr, the recently arrived substitute, out of play for a throw that will be taken on the Sunderland right-hand side. And taken by Hume, back for 09 again, to Ekwa, to Ballard. And now out to the Sunderland left-hand side for Ajay Lise. 4 minutes to go here on Talksport. Ballard bringing it forward. Slipping it through the midfield. Barr with an opportunity to run at the back line. Barr slipping it inside the penalty area, getting the return ball, hitting it. Left-footed shot was blocked. Comes back to him again. It's making things happen immediately after coming on. Oh, it's a brilliant turn. And eventually, as the ball is played in, Botman has to come across and take responsibility and clear.
I'll tell you what, he did well there. Barr, he kept hold of the ball, kept creating a little space for himself.
And then he's driven through the midfield by Dan Neal, but not to good effect. Newcastle can easily clear that. Ballard finds his centre-half partner 09 for Sunderland. Into the feet of Ekwa. Ballard again. Out of the left for Elise. Barr has made an instant impression. And again, very easy to see things from up here. But I just wonder why he wasn't maybe given another 10 minutes or so.
Absolutely. Because that would have made it... It's about trying to get back in the game, and I suppose he just didn't want to take that risk, but he's done well since he's come on.
Now Neil has squeezed the ball through down the right hand side. Barr will be able to pick it up after an infield ball from Trey Hume. Hume then into a dangerous area right through the 6-yard box, and no Sunderland player gambled. Neil was the closest to it, but didn't really attack it. Now he comes in again, and Cher will be able to hammer it away, but it was a brilliantly inviting ball through that 6-yard box.
Very similar ball to the one that the own goal came from in the first half. Just needed some Sunderland persuasion to put it in.
And now misjudgment by 09, and Isak will pick it up, and Gordon will drive his way forward, and the challenge comes inside the penalty area from Ballard, and it's a penalty to Newcastle. And they have the chance to set the seal on it right at the end of the game. Gordon making his way through inside the penalty area. Ballard came across and shoved him to the ground.
Yeah, it's
easy decision.
Yeah, tired challenge that from Ballard. He came across at speed. Gordon was at speed, and it was about, hang on a minute, I'm not going to make this and not going to get the ball. So he took Gordon out, and there's absolutely no complaints. That's a tired challenge from the centre back, who's actually been very, very good this afternoon.
Well, the Newcastle fans, the 6,000 or so that have made the 12-mile journey down, with their scarves being waved around their head now at the prospect of taking a 3-0 lead with next to no time to go. They know now with certainty that this is their afternoon. Isak stands with the ball in his hand. We've seen it on a few occasions where Newcastle player will stand with the ball in his hand and then present it to somebody else before the penalty is taken. But is it going to be Isak himself? He's certainly the man that has spotted it down. And Patterson, the Sunderland goalkeeper, just being reminded of his responsibilities here by referee Craig Pawson. So Isak, who scored in the first minute of the second half, now has a chance to score in the 90th minute as well. The crowd's reaction will let you know whether it goes in. Isak taking a 3 or 4 step run up, and he hits it right-footed, sends it the wrong way. It's a day of utter Geordie jubilation. They're going to knock Sunderland out of the FA Cup and win here on Wearside for the first time since 2011. A horrible draw for Newcastle in many ways, but they've got over it. They've got through it with ease. Sunderland 0, Newcastle United 3, and the North East for now is black and white again.
Yeah, I mean, he's a cool customer, Isak, from the penalty spot. Feels absolutely no pressure. He sends Patterson the wrong way and coolly just places it in the left-hand side of the goal. Make it emphatic. It's not quite been as emphatic as probably Newcastle fans thought when they scored the second goal at the start of the second half, but I think Newcastle have come here today and they've just put a professional performance in. They've done what they've needed to do to beat this Sunderland team. They just haven't had the threat from Sunderland whatsoever, and they've done enough, and that is a good performance from Newcastle this afternoon.
The 100th goal of Alexander Isak's club career. 2 in the derby for him. A 3-0 lead on Wearside. We're in 3 minutes of stoppage time, but Newcastle are going to make a quadruple substitution. Livramento coming on for Almiron. Lascelles is coming on for Cher.
I'll tell you what, Jim, there's some appearance fees coming on here. I don't know whether Eddie Howe just wants players to get a couple of minutes, whether he wants to just give a bit of time for the Newcastle contingent at that left-hand side to just enjoy the moment. Whatever it is, it's just a break in play, and it's just prolonging the agony for these Sunderland players, and most of the fans just seem to be piling out of the stadium at the moment. They don't want to watch.
One Newcastle fan has replaced another as well, with Dan Burn coming off and Paul Dummett coming on. Dummett, who lost all 4 of his Tyne Weir derbies in the past. He played in the last one here back in 2015, but he gets a few minutes right at the end of this. Ritchie for Gordon is the other change. And Newcastle made a change right at the start of the second half when Jolinton came off to be replaced by Miley, so they've now made all of their changes. And to be fair to Sunderland fans, the vast majority have stayed, but there are a lot now of visible empty red seats. Not a space to be seen in the end away to our left-hand side, the sea of jubilant black and white.
Yeah, I think this game was certainly crucial for Eddie Howe and his players to get themselves back in some form, get a win. Not so much Sunderland, but they just want to see their players just give something.
So here's the lively substitute Bart, playing it back to Neil. Neil to Elise. And Elise out towards the Sunderland left-hand side. Another chance for Jack Clark to bring it onto his right foot and send the ball swinging in towards the far post where Hume was attacking it, but it ends up in the hands of Dubravka. 3 minutes of added time are up. They are going to be significantly extended because of the quadruple change, also because of the celebrations in the immediate aftermath of the Isak goal, so we might have another 90 seconds yet. Here's Jamal Lascelles, who along with Paul Dummett, the only other player who's featured today to have played in one of these games before, and he too is going to be on the winning side for the first time in his career in the Weir Tyne derby.
Yeah, Dummett did well actually, coming at left back, and good ball played into the box, and he got a backwards header on it just so that it just didn't allow Sunderland to get a free shot on goal.
Here's Lascelles. Forward towards Botman. Eddie Howe's black and white army, the vociferous refrain to our left-hand side. They've needed this. They've come into it on the back of 5 away defeats in a row in the Premier League, with a cup elimination at Chelsea in the midst of that run as well. Newcastle, after the huge disappointments and bad luck that they suffered in Europe, just having to regroup. But this will do them the power of good psychologically.
Yeah, I said before the game that a loss would affect these managers differently, and I think Eddie Howe breathed a sigh of relief that his team have come here and done what he expected them to do. But you know, they've been struggling lately. They're struggling for energy, been struggling for a little bit of form, and this might be a springboard that they need to get back on track.
Bellingham plays it through the centre circle. There's space for Barr on the Sunderland right-hand side, and Neil will try and play him in now. Barr's got it. An opportunity for him to try and take on Dummett. Just pulls it back towards the edge of the penalty area, knocked away relatively easily. Longstaff will turn, play it back to the edge of his own penalty area, where Dummett will be able to guide it out towards Bruno Guimaraes. And Guimaraes turns it forward. That's the last touch of the day. A throaty roar of approval from the travelling Newcastle United supporters. A standing ovation of consolation to the local heroes in red and white today, who've been well beaten. Shot themselves in the foot to a certain extent, Sunderland, giving the ball away right at the start of the second half to go 2-0 down. Dan Ballard put through his own net in the first. Isak rounded things off after Ballard gave away a penalty late in the game. Newcastle United have got the job done. And having not beaten Sunderland for so long, having lost 6 of the last 7, this really is the catalyst to the second half of their season. A difficult draw, but in the end, absolutely no hassle for Newcastle. It is finished. Sunderland 0, Newcastle United 3.
And there are always some idiots that run onto the pitch, and we've got 2 of them, in fact, heading down towards the Newcastle fans. They came from the Sunderland end, and both the steward and the fan slip over in the conditions out here. Just a bit of a comedic end to what certainly has not been a funny afternoon if you're a Sunderland fan, that's for sure. All friendly again, back on the pitch with the players shaking each other's hands, mutual respect that they've both got to play in an occasion like this, because certainly it promised to be absolutely astounding, but ultimately Lucy Ward, Sunderland were the architects of their own downfall, and Newcastle showed why they're the Premier League side.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Faye. I think they were a little bit naive in the first half, Sunderland, and then the second half they came out and they started playing the ball out from the back. It got caught really early, Newcastle got the second goal, gift really, and then it was always an uphill battle for Sunderland to get themselves back in it. But I do think that Newcastle were in control throughout the whole of the game. A little bit of an experience told. I think Pritchard was probably Sunderland's, along with Ballard, and a standout player, simply because he had the experience to know what to do when he received the ball to feet. And he sort of got them going a little bit second half, but the game had gone by that stage.
Was it, do you think, a little bit? I mean, look, you can see what it means to the Newcastle fans. 6,000 of them over on the left-hand side in the North Stand as the players and coaching team go over to applaud them, because they were loud throughout the game, and they know what it means to them, but they also know what it means to the club, because they've been in such a poor run of form at the moment. This is vital for Eddie Howe.
Yeah, absolutely vital. You know, it was the worst fixture that he could have had in a FA Cup third round, but I think that him and his team dealt with it superbly. You know, they kept hold of the ball, and they recycled the ball a lot during that first half. They got themselves a goal up. They did the same in the second half, won the ball high up the pitch, and didn't really put a foot wrong. But what I would say, they didn't probably feel threatened by Sunderland.
Oh, I can tell you something that's not going down particularly well at the moment. Not sure how advised that is.
Yeah, they usually do a team shot in the dressing room of every single member of staff. There's about 50, there's more staff than there are players. It's ridiculous nowadays, but they're having that team photo in front of the Newcastle fans, which hasn't gone down well around us.
It most certainly hasn't for those Sunderland fans who are left in the Stadium of Light, of which there are not many. They want to get away from this as soon as possible, no doubt. Absolutely. Listen to the sound. Some of the Newcastle players throwing their shirts into the crowd. 4 or 5 of them actually shirtless as they walk out. You know, a reward for all of those fans, 6,000 of them that had to travel from St James's Park on coaches, and they're going to be kept inside the stadium for the next half an hour to an hour as well, to let the Sunderland fans disperse and make sure there's no trouble. And actually that's been quite important. The police have been fantastic today in keeping it calm.
Yeah, I mean, it's been one of those bubble fixtures, hasn't it, where they're not allowed to wander about outside Newcastle. We're in here early, but, you know, they don't care. They've enjoyed every minute. The expectation was, you know, that they're not, Sunderland are not in the same orbit as a team as Newcastle, so they should have come here and won 3-0. It's not quite as easy as that, but they've done the job and they're celebrating. But those fans will have a long way, but I'm sure they'll spend the whole of the time singing.
Yeah, just the 12 miles back for them to St James's Park, and they'll be in jubilant voice, no doubt. Alexander Isak has written his name in Geordie history. Sunderland, the architects of their own downfall, ultimately. It's been more than 12 years since Newcastle last won at the Stadium of Light. They're through to the 4th round of the FA Cup to arrest their slump in form and relieve the pressure on Eddie Howe. The Weir Time derby goes the way of the Magpies. It's finished Sunderland 0, Newcastle 3. FA Cup Game Day Live on Talksport continues with Adrian Durham going around the grounds next.